Freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome one and all. You're watching What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, streaming live at you here every Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. East Coast time. Ladies and gentlemen, government is slavery. It's really good to be back here on What on Earth is Happening after a multi-month hiatus. So today on the program, we are going to be clearing up a lot of things, a lot of speculation, and we are going to be telling exactly what occurred following the 2019 Anarchadelphia conference here in Philadelphia. I withheld this information for quite a while to give the organizers a chance to remedy the situation. And when that wasn't done, I went on my website, publicly made a statement about what had occurred at the conference, and, gave a little bit of a preliminary report, just cursorily went over some of the things that occurred. But today we are going to go into the detail of what actually occurred before, during, and after the Anarchadelphia conference. And I just want to say, prior to getting into some other announcements and then going through the timeline of what occurred, that this isn't what I want to spend my time doing here on What on Earth is Happening. This show is all about trying to end slavery. You know, we are trying to end slavery one mind at a time here on What on Earth is Happening. We are here to teach natural law. We're here to teach morality. Okay? That's what this show is ultimately all about. It's to give people some insights into the occult world that's taking place all around them, the world of control that very few people, unfortunately, in our world can see. And ultimately, it's about really understanding the definitive difference between right behavior and wrong behavior so we can make informed decisions regarding the moral implications of our behavior and thus create a better shared experience for everybody here on Earth. That's what this whole show is all about. So I don't want to have to focus on unfortunate events like this that were about, quite frankly, very shady dealings within the anarchist community. That's not what I want to have to spend my very valuable time doing, okay, and putting together timelines such as this as we're going to go over today. But I really have to do this because it's a moral obligation, honestly, because the people who hosted this conference, who did not act honorably or with integrity, which is what this show is all about. This is about integrity in the so-called freedom movement. And if I'm dealing with someone that didn't act with integrity and they showed me a lack of respect and they pulled shady business dealings, who is to say that that will not continue with friends or colleagues of mine that these people may partner with? And that's why I have to tell what actually occurred. I have to go through things with detail and tell people, because this is how things would work in an anarchic society. There would be no authority. There would be no people going and taking these people and bringing them into a court and putting them in a cage or whatever, okay? We're against those things. We don't want to see the state's involvement. That's why I'm not into contracts, folks. I'm not into legal contracts. I'm going to talk about why we didn't do anything like that, and I haven't done anything like that since the inception of What on Earth is Happening. Only if other people demanded for my participation in an event, I'll agree to sign a contract. But you know what? In my dealings with people, I go by my word. That's what my bond is. That's my bond of integrity. I try to honor everything that I say I'm going to do, and that's ultimately what integrity in this movement is all about. It's about honoring your word and doing what you say you're going to do and following through, and then verbally, contractually obligating, coming to a fulfillment of your obligations that you agreed to. And I did that in every aspect regarding Anarchadelphia 2019. And unfortunately, the verbal agreements, verbal contracts that I made with some of the organizers were not honored or agreed, were not made whole. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. But you know what? What I want to do before we even get into that is I do have several announcements. So I want to get people up to date with what's going on with What on Earth is Happening and myself. And then we're going to get into the timeline of what happened, prior to Anarchadelphia and during the conference and after it. So let me go right into my slideshow if you want to switch over to the slides. This is the awesome artwork that Brett Hatton made for the show. We're having a little bit difficulty bringing up the slides. Just give us a moment. So my producer is going to bring that up in a moment. Let's see. Do you want me to reboot? Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay. All right, so this is the title card for today's episode. This is episode 223 of What on Earth is Happening, and it's entitled Anarchadelphia Fallout and Integrity in the Freedom Movement. So before we get into this whole, timeline rundown, I'm actually going to also be bringing two guests onto the show. Okay, I'm going to be bringing my assistant and associate producer Leah Boone onto the show to discuss some of the things that occurred. And we're going to be bringing a former member of the Anarchadelphia organizational team and a former member of the State of Anarchy, Patrick Leach, onto the show, who over this situation and other things parted ways with the State of Anarchy, who hosted Anarchadelphia 2019, and Pat did ultimately act honorably and attempt to fulfill his obligations regarding agreements that we made at the conference. So that's why I'm going to be bringing Pat on to also give some of his insights regarding what happened. So before we do that, I want to give some good news. The show isn't all about bad news, okay? The first ever documentary that I'm putting together with the help of many other talented individuals, is going to be called Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law. This is the first anywhere full-length feature documentary on natural law, to the best of my knowledge. Certainly, it's going to be the most informative and comprehensive documentary on the topic of natural law that's probably ever been made, again, to the best of my knowledge. And it is really going great. People are going to love this when it comes out. I think it's coming out really, really awesomely. So we're very well into the completion of this documentary. We have now hired a new video editor, as I'll be talking about later, to finish the documentary. We've gotten great donations in from people who really want to see this project completed. And I want to thank them for their generosity and their donations, because you're really making it possible for us to have a budget for this film finally. Okay, so the documentary is probably going to be out around May as our conjectured release date. But do not hold me definitively to that. That is our projection, and we're going to try to get the documentary completed and released by May of 2020. Again, that release date may slip. We will see what happens, but we're sort of on track for that as it stands right now. If you are of a mind and have some extra resources at your disposal and you would like to donate toward the completion of the natural law documentary that we're making here at What on Earth is Happening, you can go to gifts.whatonearthishappening.com. You can go to our gift store. I'm going to actually jump out of the slideshow and I'm going to show you where you can do this at, okay? So you could go to gifts.whatonearthishappening.com. If you want to just put the slides back up momentarily, there's 5 donation tiers for donations for the documentary completion. There's tiers of $50, $100, $250, $500, and the $1,000 donation tier will actually put you in the special thanks in the credits on the documentary for that 5th tier. 100% of donations are going to go directly toward the production costs for the documentary, namely paying an editor and paying graphics people. And all donors will receive a complimentary copy mailed to them of the completed documentary on both flash drive and DVD. So that being said, let me jump out of the slideshow if we want to just cut away from that momentarily. And I am going to go to the whatonearthishappening.com website, and you can jump back into the computer. I'm going to make this full screen. And this is the What on Earth is Happening website. Now, if you go over to the gifts area, so if you click on the gifts tab or you click on the donation gifts button here, okay, you will jump into the gifts website. Now, I've added a new section in the gifts website, What on Earth is Happening donation gifts, called documentary. Now, if you click on documentary, here are the 5 donation tiers. So you can actually add a donation to the basket for the gift cart, okay? So let's say you wanted to donate $100. You would click the $100 tier. This is tier number 2. And then you could hit add to basket, okay? So then when you check out, it'll add a shipping fee, okay? And then you will be mailed the documentary when it is completed and released on flash drive and DVD. And you'll be contributing to the completion of the film. I just want to say this has been extraordinarily successful. People have been so generous with their resources and so kind to make donations toward the completion of this documentary film. I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. Everyone here at What on Earth is Happening thanks everyone who has donated. And I just want to say specifically, not to belabor this too long, but I really am highly impressed with people from the entire European continent for their generosity in donating toward this film. I have to say, the donations that we received to complete this project, I'd say about 75% of them came from Europe. So the people of Europe, thank you. You know, I mean, I know I can kind of get on your guys' case, especially over the issue of gun rights and self-defense sometimes. But in this instance, you guys have been super generous. And I have to really, give you props for really stepping up and coming forward and helping me to have a budget for the completion of this documentary, because it was dead in the water after Anarchadelphia because of monetary resources that were unfortunately not there. But people's generosity have really turned that around and are going to make it possible for us to complete this film in a timely fashion. So thank you so much, especially to the people of Europe. People from all around the world donated, don't get me wrong. But really, the people of Europe were extraordinarily generous in this particular effort and outreach to give us some donations for this documentary effort. So thank you so much. Okay, that being said, let's show people the official trailer for the documentary entitled Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law. So I'm going to go over to, this is actually in the news section of the website. It's also on the home page, okay? And we're going to play right from my YouTube channel, the Natural Law documentary trailer number 1. So here it is for the first time, the trailer for the documentary film entitled Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law.
Is humanity truly free? Are there universal laws in effect that apply to human behavior? Does our knowledge or ignorance of these laws impact our collective freedom as a species?
Natural law, I guess you could say just what almost like first instinct, kind of?
I think it means like how law is interpreted by people.
Damn, actually, now I'm thinking about it, I don't know what natural law means.
What is natural law? It is the secret of all the so-called secret societies throughout human history. Natural law is a set of universal, unchangeable conditions which governs the collective behavioral choices of entire populations. The consequences which we receive are always dependent upon whether our chosen behaviors are either moral or immoral.
These laws are built into the fabric of reality, just like gravity and electromagnetism. The understanding of natural law is absolutely not a belief system or a religion. Natural law actually constitutes a science of morality, which requires no belief or faith. The workings of natural law can be discovered and understood through its observable, measurable, and repeatable effects in our world.
The understanding of natural law is critically important to human beings who seek to live in freedom and peace together. The freedom or slavery of an entire society is hinged upon whether that society behaves in the aggregate morally or immorally. As morality increases, freedom increases. And as morality declines, freedom declines.
Will we continue down the path of slavery, watching our inherent rights stripped from us little by little? Or will we embrace the moral principles of natural law?
The only solution to the human condition of slavery is to spread the understanding of natural law and make it common sense knowledge for everyone. All right. So that is the trailer for my first ever documentary film offering, Mark Passio on the Science of Natural Law. Very, very happy with how it's coming out. I think it's looking great visually, and I think it's going to really make a very powerful educational outreach tool for people to understand what natural law is and how it actually works. So that's the documentary. Let's cut back over to, let me just bring my slideshow back up, and let's cut back over to that. All right. So again, if you want to donate, that's up there in the gifts area, in the gifts tab of the whatonearthishappening.com website. I will be speaking at the conference called SEED. This is the 4th SEED conference coming up in Athens, Ohio, on May 29th through 31st, 2020. This conference is being hosted by Brandon and Douglas Martin. I'm very honored to be a part of it. Seed 4, the subtitle of the conference is Ending Slavery, One Heart and Mind at a Time. The speakers that are going to be featured so far as part of this conference in Ohio is myself, Mark Devlin, Douglas Martin, Brandon Martin, Nate Kapp, Logan Hart, Sean McCann, and many more speakers to be added. For tickets, please visit the Seed 4 website. You could get that through skatopia.org, skatopia.org, and the tickets are going to be on sale at eventbrite.com under Seed 4 Conference. So, really looking forward to taking part in the Seed Conference. This will be my last public conference that I'm going to be participating in of conferences that are hosted by others. Unfortunately, I'm making that decision because I just want to host my own events if I'm going to be speaking publicly. It has worked out much better for me rather than, you know, the travel associated with going to other conferences and honestly dealing with problems that occur regarding conferences that I just don't basically handle myself and just take care of all the logistics myself and host the event locally. So I'm going to be moving, to a model of just hosting events locally, and hopefully people will be willing to come and travel to Philadelphia to see me speak in person if they're inclined to do so. So, in the future, I'll be having like all day events of myself speaking here in the Philadelphia area. And there's some other surprise announcements that we're going to be getting to in the next few weeks here on What on Earth is Happening regarding public events. But I'll leave that as a teaser, and we'll see when we could make some public announcements regarding that. So that being said, out of Anarchadelphia, one good thing that came about it was my presentation that I gave as part of the event called The Sacred Gift of Anger. This is now publicly available in the donation gifts area of my website. You can get that on DVD, pictured here in the slideshow. This is how the cover of the DVD and disc came out. And you could also get that on flash drive. Now, I always recommend the flash drives personally. I think things are moving more in that direction, and less people are going for DVDs these days, because the flash drive will have the video in full HD, whereas the DVD, you're going to get a little bit of a diminished quality because it's in DVD format, which is, kind of MPEG-2 stream, and it's not as high definition as, the full MPEG-4 video that we put onto the flash drive. So, if you're up to speed in the modern technological area, I recommend going with the flash drive. This is what the flash drive basically what it looks like. It's a nice modern blue swivel flash drive, 16 gigabyte. And then you have the a little keychain tag tacked onto it with the cover of the documentary. And there's a little description on the back. So those items are available in the What on Earth is Happening donation gifts area at gifts.whatonearthishappening.com. Another great thing that we added to the gifts area, and I really want to let people know that this is a really great value, and I'm telling you, like, a lot of people have taken me up on this and are picking this up in the gift shop because we decided, what if people don't want to get the documentaries or the presentations that I've done in a piecemeal way, okay? What if they don't want to get one flash drive at a time as presentations come out? Well, this is the opportunity to basically get all of my publicly released works in one place. We call it the Complete Mark Passio One Great Work Collection, okay? And it's everything that I've basically ever put out publicly. Okay, so here's what this drive includes. This is the cover art, okay, and then on the back of this, on the keychain that's attached to the drive, as I'll be explaining, this is what's actually on the Great Work Collection drive. All publicly released presentations that I've done with all of the associated presentation slides in high quality JPEG format. All archived interviews that I've done over the years from 2009 to the present, along with some ancillary videos. And the entire What on Earth is Happening podcast series and show series, the video show series, with associated images for each podcast and associated reading materials that I've talked about in the podcast. And then, of course, you have my band. The founders are my anarchy hardcore punk, anarchy-related hardcore punk band, called The Founders. We released an EP a couple years back called No Masters, No Slaves. You get that music with all of the ancillary materials that come on the flash drive for No Masters, No Slaves EP. All of that is on one 500 gigabyte solid state drive. And this is what the drive looks like. So this is the tag that comes on the keychain. That's the back of it. This is what the drive actually looks like. And this isn't doing it justice for how actually cool it looks and how small it is. You can't believe how small this thing is. You just look at how large the keychain is. That's a little keychain tag. Okay. And basically, this thing is fast too. I mean, it's a USB-C drive and it has an adapter for USB 3, but this thing is an extremely fast solid state drive, and the aesthetics of it are great. Now, the cost, the donation that we're asking for this is $333 on the store. I'm going to take you to the store and show you where you can order this on the store. But people would think, well, that's a lot. Actually, this drive retails for about $100, a little less than that. But then it's like if you bought all of the, if you donated for all of the other presentations alone, it would cost like over $500. I calculated if you got all the things that are available on the donation gifts area that are on this drive, you would be donating $570. So, and plus there's much more than that on this drive that is not up there, you know, with as far as interviews go and ancillary videos and audio. So really the value is even beyond just what's up there in the form of individual presentations that if you bought them alone would be about $570. So we're basically offering this drive plus a whole lot more material. And you get the drive, you know, and a nice case that the drive comes in as well. And that's about a 40% discount. I think it's like a 42% discount, something like that. So I think that's a tremendous value. Let me step out of the presentation momentarily, and I want to just show you this right on the whatonearthishappening.com gifts area. So let's cut over to this. This is an article about the Sacred Gift of Anger, okay, showing that it has been released on DVD and flash drive. But if you click into gifts here and you look at the new, another new section that I added over the holiday season, there is the Passio collection. Okay, so the Passio collection drive has just one item in it. And if you click on this here, the complete Mark Passio One Great Work collection, that will take you to the product page. And this is where you can check out the information about what is on the drive. And you can get the drive dimensions here and the weight of it. It's very, very small and thin and weighs hardly anything. It's an amazing product. So I just wanted to let people be aware that we are offering that, and that is up on the gifts area as we speak. So let's go back to the presentation slides and continue. All right. So we're going to get into the main topic of discussion. And it looks like we're having a technical problem. If people can just give us a moment, I'll have my producer check that out. What is the issue?
Can you just pull that very slightly, just not so it's not touching the table?
Yes. All right, we're having a problem with a mic audio sound. A little bit of a distortion coming through, so he wanted to reposition our mic stand. Is that sounding better? Okay, great. All right, so let's get involved in the actual timeline description of what happened in the Anarchadelphia debacle, because this really hurt us here at What on Earth is Happening and kind of put us out of commission for a few months, honestly. And I got to tell people some other things that were going on personally at the time as well that I had to take care of that really set me back financially quite a bit. And again, thank God for the generous people who donated toward the documentary and helped us get back up to operational speed here at What on Earth is Happening. We couldn't have done it without your generosity. So it's great to be back on the airwaves and doing this work again. And again, unfortunately, this isn't what I want to be doing. I want to be giving people philosophical discussions and information. I want to be talking more about natural law. I want to be talking more about health and nutrition, etc. Okay? Building ourselves up and building our minds up and those that we care about in our communities. That's what we really should be working on. Okay? This is an unfortunate thing that I have to do to basically out people who have not dealt and presented themselves with integrity in this movement. And this movement should be all about integrity, and it should be all about honoring our word as human beings. Okay? We don't want to see a police state. We don't want to see a government at all. Okay? But if we're going to arrive at that condition of humanity, we have to elevate our consciousness, and we need to really honestly behave with right intent and with right behavior. Okay? And it's very sad to me that that was not done by people who I considered actual friends and people who I considered were anarchists. And all of that got brought into question. We're going to explain. I'm not going to give my side of the story here, folks. People will say, well, I'm waiting to hear Mark's side of the story. You're not going to get my side of the story here today. You're going to get exact facts that constitute the truth of what happened. Not my perspective of what happened, but exactly what did occur. Okay? So let's jump in here with a timeline of events. Okay? And again, after this, I want this topic dropped, to be honest. I don't want this belabored. I don't want it going on anymore. I am giving this to people to make them aware of what occurred. So if they decide to deal with individuals who have not acted in a trustworthy capacity in dealing with me, they can take a very cautious approach in doing so, because I'm giving them the information about how they dealt with me personally in this series of events, so that they can be forewarned that perhaps they're not operating with the best of intentions. Okay? So, in February of 2018, that's where my dealings with Carmen Carangi and Sonny Mazzone of the State of Anarchy, which is what they call their group, and their YouTube channel and their website, began. So I met Carmen and Sonny from the State of Anarchy at the Anarchapulco 2018 conference in mid-February of 2018. Okay, I met them about a couple of days before I was delivering my presentation. So it was around right in the middle of the month, February 15th. It might have been the 14th, not quite sure the exact date, but it was right in that area. So Pat Leach, who became the third member of the State of Anarchy team and organizer of the Anarchadelphia conference, along with Carmen and Sonny, also met Carmen and Sonny at the same event, and he also met Mike Martin, who would become an early donor for the Natural Law documentary project. Pat met all of these people at this event. We were going to have Mike Martin also on the show, and we'll get to what his role was in a couple of moments. But he was sort of uncomfortable, and I didn't really want to press the issue and make someone come on and publicly do a show without, really feeling comfortable about it. So I kind of dropped that idea. But we'll tell you what his involvement was and what happened and how he kind of became a individual who became like a center of a little bit of controversy over a very controversial thing that the State of Anarchy tried to say happened regarding my quote payment for the event, my compensation for the event. So I presented Anarchy in the Occult, what anarchists ignore is killing them. This was my original presentation at that event, and there's the title card for that presentation. So this is where it all began at Anarchapulco. This is where I met the involved individuals. So let's move on in the timeline. And you know what? As a matter of fact, let me just jump back there because this is a good time. Let's bring on both Pat Leach and Leah Boone. Now, I'm going to have to put my headset on now, and I'm going to go into the Discord room because that's where I'm bringing them in through. So we'll also hopefully be getting to calls if I can get through all of this material in a timely fashion. So if you want to call into the show, you could do that through the Discord room, and you could get that link through my website, whatonearthishappening.com/show. So let me jump into Discord, and I'm going to bring in Leah and Pat. So here we go. Okay, so Leah, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Good, you're sounding good, thank you. And let's bring Pat in. Pat, are you there? Pat, I believe your mic is muted, so just unmute yourself, please. Hold on. Pat, are you there?
Yeah.
There you go.
Muted.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
All right, so Leah and Pat are both in, and I think that's coming through pretty clearly over the airwaves. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the timeline, and then I'll be going to you guys, asking questions, and if you really feel the need to jump in, you could also jump in. Okay?
Okay.
So let's go back to the slides for the next part of the timeline. Sorry, I have to hit play there. Okay. All right, you could jump back to it. There we go. All right, so April to July of 2019 is when work on my natural law documentary began in earnest, okay? So how the documentary began and was conceptualized was like this. Craig DeVideo, who is my longtime friend of about 24 years or so, and a teacher, he was a former teacher now, unfortunately, at the Art Institute of Philadelphia, which has since now closed due to funding problems, I believe. He proposed to me to come to the Art Institute because he's a video teacher there. He's a video production teacher, or he was, to work with his students in his video class, where they would be doing a project as part of their assignments for the semester of helping a client to build some sort of a video project of, a small short form documentary, a commercial, something of that effect. But whatever the client wanted, it would be the students would be tasked to making a video and bringing that video to completion so that the client was happy with it, and then they would receive their part of their grade based on that assignment. I thought this was an awesome idea because not only would I get like a short form video out of it, but would give the students some experience in dealing with a client, and maybe I could even teach them a little bit of natural law in the process to teach some young people. Okay, so I agreed to do this, and Leah and I went into the Art Institute and started basically working with Craig's students in his video production class. So at that point, it was probably around April of 2018, the natural law documentary was conceptualized, and myself and Leah Boone started writing the narration script for the film. Okay, so a preliminary round of person on the street interviews was filmed by the students as part of the project, and then visual storyboarding and image and video selection was begun for the natural law documentary around this time. Then preliminary recording of my monologue was filmed at the Art Institute of Philadelphia. We ended up not going with that because I really wasn't happy with it aesthetically. And then, the project grew and morphed and became something even bigger at a later time. But this is where it was basically in its infancy and began, and this was largely due to Craig's offer to come in and take part in this video production class. Okay, so let's move on, and I'll just go to Leah real quick. Do you want to add anything to that very brief introduction to how the natural law documentary began, or is that a fair assessment?
I think it's a great assessment, and I just want to point out also that this was at least 4 months of work just getting it off the ground.
Okay.
You have that up there.
Yes.
But I want to point that out.
Absolutely. So we put a lot of work into just the beginning of what this documentary was going to be about, what was going to be included in it, and started getting the images and video together to include in the documentary timeline. Okay, so that is the early stages of the natural law film project. July through December of 2018, the work on the documentary continued. And you're going to see why this is important, okay? Because it involves Carmen of the State of Anarchy and also Pat, okay? So July through September, Leah completed the images storyboard folders. We were putting basically storyboarding out the whole script and then selecting imagery for different paragraphs of the script for the timeline, and then organizing those into project folders. And Leah was working on that as my assistant, organizing all of that media. In July 2018, Pat Leach met me for the first time in Philadelphia after I watched his vegan activism video, and I wanted to meet him. Okay, so I believe it was my former partner Barb who arranged that meeting through our mutual friend Steve, and I met Pat here in Philadelphia. That was summer 2018. In August, Pat was beginning shooting small promotional videos of me doing daily work here at What on Earth is Happening, and just brief interviews to help promote my website, and also getting that onto the State of Anarchy's YouTube channel. He published that footage on their YouTube channel, and that helped their viewer subscription and their viewers and subscription rate, etc. So it was a mutually beneficial little projects that Pat was helping to do. So that was going on for about a month. And then in late August 21st, Pat decided to bring up that I was doing the documentary to his friend Mike Martin, who he had met at Anarchapulco 2018. And he asked him about the potential for Mike to fund the natural law documentary. And Mike agreed to start funding the project, and he was going to start paying Pat and Carmen for shooting and editing the documentary. So shooting whatever video needed to be shot, in high quality, and also to actually be laying the film and images and audio into a video editing program and creating a timeline and editing that, until the documentary was in good form and completed. So Mike Martin became the donor for the film in the early stages of the documentary. In early September of 2018, not even a week after that, Mike, in a conversation with me, told me that he would be funding the film. So Pat originally set that up, and later, less than a week, Mike and I had a conversation, and he actually told me he would be the donor working with Carmen and Pat. And I said, fine, that's awesome, and thanked him, and we moved on. So in early September of 2018, me and Pat started structuring an actual layout in the editing timeline, like an idea of how we were going to put together a timeline for the film, and we were going to reshoot the actual script. I would read the script, and we would shoot it here at my place with a better camera and a teleprompter. So on September 12th, Pat reshot my personal monologue, my part of the script, but the shooting had an undesirable outcome. I didn't really like the background or the harshness of the way the film looked. So we really wanted, I wanted to shoot it again after that because I really wanted to have it visually look a particular way. And, plus, I believe one of the reasons I eventually asked to reshoot it yet again was the teleprompter that I had wasn't great quality. At least to me, it wasn't good enough. And I was still looking into it sort of sideways, and I couldn't really look at the camera and just like read the script and not, just seemingly just focus on my words. So I looked distracted. You could see my eyes moving as I was reading it. I got a higher quality teleprompter at some point through a very generous donation from an individual. And we reshot with that teleprompter, as I'll explain. But in October 23rd, Pat shot the new person on the street interviews that are in the film, assisted by Carmen. November 20th, Pat reshot my monologue yet again using a new teleprompter, and that's the footage that's ending up in the actual documentary. Because it finally came out aesthetically how I liked it. Okay, so that being said, December 2nd, Pat relocated to Costa Rica. He was living in the Philadelphia area for a while, and he eventually moved and left and went to Costa Rica. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. All right.
But also, yes, just to point out, the funding of the documentary was exclusively paying Pat and Carmen at this time.
That is correct. Mike was not giving me funds for the film. He was not contributing.
Nor me.
Right.
I was on a hiatus at this time due to a death in my family as well.
Right. So no one was giving any money to What on Earth is Happening for this. Mike had arranged with both Carmen and Pat to pay them directly for their contribution, and they would basically invoice him for hours worked upon the documentary at that point. At some point, Mike realized that that was not a good way to operate and decided to change his mind, but we will get to that. Okay, so this is the proofs. These are the proofs of the payments made by Mike Martin that he agreed to allow to be shown without any personal data being shown regarding his accounts. But these are bank statements regarding how much money was actually paid to Carmen and Pat in the early editing stages of the Natural Law documentary. So in August of 2018, $400 was paid to Carmen, $400 to Pat. In September, $400 to Carmen, $400 to Pat. In October, so this is the August and September bank statement here shown in this first slide. Okay, the later September into October statements are here. So you have October, $800 went to Pat, which he gave $400 to Carmen in cash. And then in December, this one is for September and October, this statement here shown below, okay? Then in
apparently there was no November payment because nobody got paid for reshooting. Pat, you decided that wasn't going to be something you charged for, right?
No. Also, when I had talked to Mike originally, I had never, it wasn't me and Carmen doing this. I was doing it by myself, but I was living with Carmen, was with him for 2 months. So I wanted to involve him because of the state of anarchy and what we were doing. And he, he's got a mic and he knows Philly. So it was good to bring him out, and, he did assist me. It was helpful. But yeah, the first payment was directly to me for $800. And I paid Carmen half of that for his participation. And then I asked Mike to separate the payments from there on out. And I was paid another $400 for the next month. Carmen was paid $400. And then I feel terribly guilty for turning the editing over to Carmen. But I just want people to know that I'm not a Philadelphia native. I actually live 4 hours north. And I only relocated to Philadelphia to help Carmen and Sonny with a documentary they wanted to create called The State of Anarchy, which never got around to happening. So it was ironic that I met you, and then this all came about. And I'd like to say that I'm actually degreed in film and video production, so I know what I'm doing when it comes to this stuff. And I'm not just some guy trying to take money or whatever.
Sure.
I'm paying myself for my skills to produce great quality stuff. And Mike has actually expressed that the 800, the 1,600 of original payments while I was still involved financially, I suppose, was money well spent.
Okay.
And then Carmen,
I would agree with that.
I actually had to cut this funding off because 3 months went by. I was actually in Costa Rica, and I talked to Mike, and I was like, Mike, he's like, oh, I just paid him $900.
Yeah, so let's get to that in a progression in the timeline. So let's talk about that now. So in early December of 2018, Carmen actually took over the actual editing of the timeline project in the editing program called DaVinci Resolve. Okay, so this is when he actually became the main editor of the project. Okay,
and that means, we just say what that means? That means he was going to take the footage of the interviews, the footage of the monologue, and all of the images and video that we had up to that point, and put it into the timeline, arrange it, and
Sure.
create the actual documentary. That's what the editor was going to do at the time.
That's an editor's job, and as the executive producer, I oversee that process. As my associate producer on the whole documentary, Leah's job is to implement my vision by working with the editor and then showing me cuts, and then I make changes based on what I want to see happen on the screen, and then she helps to implement that with the editor. That's how the process works, okay? I was not micromanaging this project at this time. I was just saying what I basically wanted it to generally look like and giving some images that I wanted to see and allowing Leah to, pick some images as well and arrange them into storyboard folders, etc. Okay, so this is how we were working at the time. And basically the editor just, with the software, works the software to bring the vision that we're trying to bring onto the screen. That's their job. Okay, so Carmen took over the main editing at this point, and he asked for now to be given $900 a month by Mike Martin, who agreed to that fee. So Mike paid Carmen $900 each month, December, January, and February. December 2018, January 2019, February 2019. Here are the PayPal statements shown by Mike Martin's PayPal account. Okay, so this is the money sent from Mike Martin to Carmen Carangi, February 4th, January 7th, and December 17th. So December of 2018, January of 2019, and February of 2019. Those are the three payments. Again, we're glad to have these screenshots. We don't want to compromise anybody's accounts or anything like that. We don't want to show any confidential or personal information here. We're just showing proof that this money was indeed paid to Carmen as it was agreed. Okay,
And
so
he was working independently for those 3 months.
yes, and we're going to talk about the results of this in a moment to show you what ended up being the fallout of this and what Mike thought about the money that he had spent. Okay, so the totals here are: Carmen received for editing the project from Mike Martin $3,900, and Pat Leach received $1,200 from Mike Martin. So that's the payment. And the way that it worked out monetarily from Mike Martin, our early donor, for the early documentary shooting and editing. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide in the timeline.
Well, it's
yes.
Technically 4,200 to Carmen, 800 to me.
Okay, so why would you say?
I gave him $400 of the first initial payment.
I see. Okay.
$800 towards, yeah, so he got 4,200.
So Pat's saying technically there is an additional, right, because we don't have that statement. There was an additional 400. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, not an
so
additional 400.
Okay.
400 out of, you have on there 3,200, 1,200 for me. 400 of that's accounted.
Oh, you're saying out of the 1,200 that you collected, you gave 400 of that to Carmen.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So then the total should be 4,200 and 800. Okay. All right. So in February of 2019, here's some of the events that transpired. February 4th, 2019, to this point, only 15 minutes of the documentary timeline had been completed. Mike Martin expressed to Pat that he is disappointed with Carmen's performance as the main editor on the project, which he took over, and considering the amount of money, well, he's disappointed in his performance considering the amount of money that was spent versus the actual amount of work that had been completed on the documentary up to that point. So Mike was not happy about how much money he had given to Carmen versus how much Carmen had actually completed of the documentary timeline. When he saw that the timeline had only been worked about 15 minutes into the film, he was like, I've paid you this much money and this is the amount of work that you've done. And, he wasn't happy with that. But I don't think he expressed that directly to Carmen. I think he expressed that to Pat. And then eventually Mike expressed that to me. I wish he would have done it a little bit sooner. But, he was, I think, giving Carmen the benefit of the doubt and seeing how this would progress, this work would progress. And, at that point, I think Carmen was starting to just basically, drag things out a little bit. Okay, so Mike was basically saying he wasn't happy with the money that he spent toward Carmen. February 15th, 2019, I met up with Carmen, Sonny, and Pat again at Acapulco 2019. Okay, so this is the slide title card of the presentation I did there in Acapulco, Mexico. This was Anarchy in the Occult Part 2, Religion versus Initiation. I also gave a workshop at this conference. Okay, and at the conference, right after I came out of the main arena, the main hall where presenters were speaking, after I had delivered this presentation, Anarchy in the Occult Part 2, I did an interview on film with Carmen for the State of Anarchy website, and we talked about what was going on at Acapulco, and we talked about general things in the freedom movement. And Carmen, at the end of that interview, near the end of that interview, asked me if I would be willing to come and speak and do a presentation at Anarchadelphia, which was going to be his inaugural presentation here in Philadelphia. So he asked me to participate, and I agreed to take part in the conference and do a presentation at the conference. So then February 16th, which was the next day after I spoke, I was going to lunch at Acapulco at a little place that they had set up in the retreat there, in the not the retreat, like the hotel area, the villa. It was called Vegan Verde Vegan, actually, and good vegan food. So I was sitting down there with a few friends talking, and Mike Martin came in. He came over to my table at lunch, and we started talking. And he was telling me how dissatisfied he was with Carmen's progress on the documentary. And this was kind of really just the first time I'm hearing about this in full and the details of how much he had given him. And because, again, no money came through me at this point. I was not given money to fund the documentary, the money was being given by Mike to other people as long as they continued to put in work in the documentary and log their hours, etc., and he was paying them. So Mike told me that he really should have given the money directly to me at that point, at this lunch discussion. Okay. So Mike decided then and there at the table, he said that he's going to temporarily hold off on giving any more money toward the project. But he said if he decided at some future point to contribute any additional funds toward the documentary, he would only give funds directly to me and no one else. And then I could allocate the funds at my discretion.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yes. As opposed to giving funds directly to any other people who happen to be working on the project. He said, Mark, I'm only going to give it to you because you'll control, what's being done and what's going to be done with this money, and you'll put it toward where it really needs to go. Whereas if I'm giving it directly to other people, I don't really know whether they're really serious about what they're doing and doing the right thing and actually, doing the amount of work that, they should be doing for what I'm giving them. So he said, I'm only going to give it to you, and I know you'll do the right thing with the money. So that's what was agreed at the lunch table the day after my presentation at Anarchapulco 2019. So
he said if he had given the money to you, it would have been done already. The editing would have been done.
I think that's a very generous statement on his part. I think, this takes a lot longer than most people think. Okay. But, I think what he was trying to express was he knows I would handle the money honorably and things would not be stretched out to a ridiculous extent. Okay. Work wise. Okay. So, let's move on in the timeline. April of 2019. Carmen asked me, this took place right in the room where I am at now, which is my bedroom / home studio. Okay. Carmen asked me in this room when he was continuing to work on the documentary timeline on his laptop in the program DaVinci Resolve. He said, can we debut this documentary at the conference that I'm hosting at Anarchadelphia 2019 in September? And I almost fell over, honestly. Okay. I was like, that's 5 months from now, right? It's 5 months. So it was April. This was probably early April, May, June, July, August, September. That's less. And it was in mid-September, the conference. So that's 5 months. Okay. Less than 5 total months. I said, there is no possibility that this documentary will be in any kind of condition to show at the conference in September. It is so overly, ridiculously ambitious to expect this to be some sort of a polished documentary project in that time frame that I didn't know whether to fall over laughing or be really? Are you nuts? That's crazy to expect that's how fast we would be able to complete this to me. Cause I know how long these things go. I know how meticulous editing is. I mean, I'm no stranger to video editing and audio editing myself. Right. So I just thought that was way overly ambitious of a time frame to set. Okay. Especially since, things go wrong, things come up in people's life, and it's 2020 and it's still not out officially. Okay. We still have at least a few more months of work on this as far as I'm concerned for me to get it to where I'm proud of it. And I think it's polished and I want it out. At least a few more months of work. Okay. So at that point, I really knew that we were nowhere near finishing it. And I said, no, I'm not going to allow you to screen this at the conference. It's not going to be ready in time. So he's not insisting, but he's practically begging me, please let me do this. He said his words, I didn't put it here on the slide, but his words were, it would be a great selling point for the conference. He said that right here in this room to me. Okay. He said, this will be a great selling point for the conference. Okay. People will want to come to see the debut of your documentary. We'll premiere it there. And I said, look, I appreciate you wanting to do that, but I don't think it'll be ready in time. I think it's way ambitious of a time frame to set. And what Carmen did at that point is, and I also told him, we have no funding for this now. The main funder is not contributing any more funds, who was doing that. So it's I can't really afford to continue to pay you. You're wrapping up work that he already paid you to do, essentially. And I don't have the kind of money to pay a video editor at this point. At that point, I did not have the funds. Okay. Eventually more donations came in and I had some more funding for this project. But you have to realize, I don't make a whole lot of money to, just hire people to do work. That's why I ask for volunteers here. The few, things that people order through the gift store, if I showed you the numbers and you said, could you live on that? Most people would be horrified. Okay. And they'd be like, that's what you're living on? That, some PayPal donations, crypto donations, and donations that come in for the ARC drive offer. Okay. So, when people see what I actually pull in and what I have to use to live on and, basically make rent, utilities, eating, etc., and fund what on earth is happening, most people are like, I don't know how you could live like that. So at this point, I really had no funds for this, okay, to pay an editor. Thankfully, now we do. We have a bit of a budget, a bit of a surplus and a budget to fund an editor and get this finished. But at this point, we had no funds coming in for this project, okay? So what Carmen said is, you don't have to pay me anymore, okay? So he got money from Mike, and he's like, you don't have to give me any more. He's like, I will complete the documentary on a volunteer basis. He said that to me right in this room in April of 2019, okay? He said, I know the conference is 5 months away, but he's like, I will complete this project on a volunteer basis for you. And if I do so, then will you allow me to screen it at Anarchadelphia? And I said, you're going to volunteer to finish this and get it in good shape, that I'll be proud of it to show at the conference. And you're going to do that on a volunteer basis, not expecting any payment from me for the completion of that work. And he said, absolutely. If you agree that I can, promote that, we will be screening the premiere of the documentary at Anarchadelphia. So under those conditions, I agreed to allow him to promote that as a selling point for Anarchadelphia. And we then eventually, at some, future point, a couple of weeks from then, made it public. We went public with the fact that we would be premiering the documentary at Anarchadelphia 2019. So I agreed under those particular conditions. So at this point, Carmen then became the main editor for the project under purely voluntary circumstances. He did not expect payment. He asked me to, in exchange for volunteering to complete the work on the editing of the film, to allow him to screen it as part of Anarchadelphia. And I agreed to that. Okay. So after that occurred, Pat then offered to take over the editing of the documentary, also on a volunteer basis. But Carmen didn't want to do that, and he wanted to continue to be the editor of the film. So we, decided we'll stick with Carmen. And Carmen continued editing the film with Leah as the associate producer, with myself as the executive producer, looking at, incrementally timeframe changes, timeline changes that they had made, and then making suggestions on what to change or improve, telling Leah, implement that, and then Leah working with Carmen to implement my changes. Okay? So, myself and Leah then had several meetings with Carmen and Pat discussing logistics for the upcoming Anarchadelphia conference. I acted as an advisor to Carmen and Pat based upon my prior experience in organizing conferences. I was the main organizer of Free Your Mind Conference 1 and Free Your Mind Conference 2. I then handed that over to other organizers, and I acted in an advisory capacity in Free Your Mind 3 and 4. But I was the main organizer in Free Your Mind 1 and 2. Sonny, unfortunately, never took part in any of these advisory meetings for the conference. And I'm not going to get into a whole lot of, what was discussed there, but I just wanted to try to give them some pointers to help them to avoid pitfalls that I had seen come up in Free Your Mind 1 and 2 while I was organizing those conferences. And some things they took my advice on, and some things they did not. And that's fine. That's okay. They wanted to do certain things their way. And I said, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to offer you some friendly advice because I've done this before. And I, tried to suggest some ways that they perhaps could better budget and save money, and also things regarding a hotel, which there was a sort of a problem with the first hotel they were going to recommend. It was very subpar, and I tried to dissuade, continuing down that course, and eventually they, just recommended a different hotel and continued to do the conference at Galdo's Catering Hall, the Galdo's Entertainment Center, it's called. Okay, so these were advisory meetings. We had a few of them, a couple of them here in my place. Some of them were even by Skype, and just to help them move the conference in a successful direction. That's all. Okay, so let's move on in the timeline and go back to the slides, please. So in June through August of 2019, I proposed to Carmen and Pat that I would like to host a teaching natural law workshop at Anarchadelphia. So I said, there's going to be a lot of people coming in for this conference. It's in Philly. I'm from Philly. It would be very easy for me to bring my equipment and host a workshop at the conference. So everybody thought that was a good idea. Nobody complained or said, no, we don't want to allow you to do a workshop. So I did say, well, I'm going to make this sort of a, really hands-on, how to do things, what, software you're going to need to know, what equipment you're going to need to know. It's going to take me a day to go through a lot of this stuff. I'm like, I need several hours. Okay. So I said, I want to give it in like 2-3 hour sections. We'll do a lunch break in between. Okay. So I needed 6 hours for the workshop. Whereas, I did my, main speech, my main presentation at Anarchadelphia, the Sacred Gift of Anger. I believe it was around an hour and a half. Okay. So when they heard that it was going to be 6 hours, they're like, well, we don't want to do that during the conference because it'll, overlap other things. And I'm like, I agree. I'm like, why don't we do it the day before or the day after? So Carmen said it would probably be better to do it the day after the conference, and that they were going to get Poppy's Italian Restaurant, which is down the street from Galdo's Catering, and rent that, and that would be where I'd host the workshop. And we agreed that they would sell the tickets on their website. So let's continue on in the timeline. So June of 2019, Carmen, Mark, and Leah participate in a phone call during which it is agreed that Mark will forego a speaker's stipend for the conference and will only keep the proceeds for his workshop as his compensation for participating in the entire event. Now, let me say this one more time, okay? Me and Leah got on the phone. It was actually on Leah's cell phone, and we didn't do this via Skype. Leah called Carmen on her phone and put him on speakerphone, okay? And we discussed what was going to be the financial arrangements for me, okay? So this was a verbal agreement by phone, okay? Now, we're going to talk about not having a contract, because I don't really believe in legal contracts personally, okay? I don't believe in the right of the state to exist from a moral perspective. So why would I believe in the legality of legal contracts? So all a written contract would do for this whole situation was we would just have written proof and signed proof in writing that, okay, this is what we agreed to. As far as I'm concerned, that's no different than a verbal agreement made via phone, via Skype, in person. Doesn't matter, okay? There are people who will, have this legal disagreement with that, but quite frankly, I don't care, because the whole idea is, again, if you're going to live in a state of anarchy, then your word needs to be your bond, and you need to act honorably with your agreements with other people. Okay, that's all it comes down to, folks. This is the crux of the matter, okay? So this is a very important part of the timeline right here, okay? So me and Leah, right in my office, in the room right down the hall from where I'm at right now, okay, sat in my office on, I believe this was on a Tuesday. That's when we usually get a lot of our logistical dealings done in the office, okay? It's the day we prefer to work. And we called Carmen and we said, well, we have to talk about what's going to be Mark's compensation for taking part in the conference. So what do you want to do? Do you want to do a speaker stipend? I apologize. I just bumped my mic. Do you want to do a speaker stipend, and maybe a breakdown on the workshop? And this is what we learned that he was offering other speakers. Okay. I said, well, We don't know how many people are coming to the will be coming to the workshop. I mean, the workshop might be a bust. It might be successful. I might get hardly anybody. Okay. Because when, they're already coming for the conference or, paying to see other people's workshops, etc. I didn't know how many people were going to be attending my workshop. I figured maybe 30 or 40 people would come to my workshop. Okay. And we'll get to those numbers in a little while, but basically, we were talking about how are we going to arrange what monies that I would get for participation. So Carmen gave us two choices. He said, well, some other speakers are doing a workshop, and we're going to do a split on the workshop, but we're going to give them a stipend for speaking. So I said, well, what would be my other option? And he said, well, you could just not take a stipend, and we won't pay you at all for your involvement in the conference. So you would speak, you would take part in the panel discussion, and you would screen the documentary, and you don't get anything for that from us, from the organizers, but you could keep your workshop. And this was sort of what happened at one of the Acapulco conferences, and then another one we did a split on the workshop. I think it was the first year I kept my whole workshop, or the second year I did. I can't remember exactly which way it was, but one year it was a stipend and a split, and the other year there was no stipend and I kept the workshop. So I said, why don't we just do that? Like, don't give me a stipend. I'm not really concerned about being paid to speak. Just I'll go and speak, do my presentation for free. We'll screen the documentary. I'll, be on the panel discussion. So all of my conference proper participation in the 3 days for the conference, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, I'll just, there'll be no stipend for any of that, and I'll just do that for free. And then we just host the workshop at Poppy's, and I'll just take the tickets that sell for that. That's it. That'll be my compensation, will just be my workshop sales. And Carmen said, that's fine. That's going to be your deal for the conference. And we agreed at that day. Okay. I don't have an exact date, but it was a Tuesday in June, okay, of 2019 where that happened. So, yeah, my producer's trying to get my attention again. Is there another problem?
No, just get Pat's input.
Okay. So now here's a big point of contention and a problem regarding this. Okay. The problem turns out that Carmen did not make his other organizers aware at this point that this conversation took place with Leah and myself. And they were under an assumption that I had made a similar arrangement as other speakers, as we're going to get to. Okay. So I want to ask Pat right now. At this point, Pat, Carmen did not tell you that we spoke with him in early June and made this arrangement for no speaker stipend, but that all that I would receive would be my workshop ticket sales. Is that correct?
Right. And I want to step back where you said Carmen told you that we were offering, because there was a universal deal made within the three of us that all workshops would be split 75-25, 75 to the speaker.
Okay.
And then he told you that we were giving all the speakers a stipend, because that's not true.
Okay. Well, he basically said your options are, and similar to other speakers, a stipend for speaking plus a split on the workshop. No figures were discussed for the split or the stipend. Okay. So he didn't say we'll give you a $500 stipend or $1,000 or a $2,000 stipend. Like I've gotten stipends to speak that were, a couple $100, and I've gotten $3,000 stipends to speak. Okay. So he gave me no figure on a stipend, nor did he tell me any percentage breakdown for a workshop breakdown. He just said the options are similar to what we're doing with other speakers, a stipend plus a workshop breakdown, or a no stipend and you get to keep your workshop. So I chose the latter alternative, and I said I would rather forego a stipend and only keep my workshop ticket sales. And he said, okay, that's fine. Then that will be your arrangement. And look, if there was no agreement, I would not have agreed to even continue to take part in the conference because I would be walking in blind to a conference regarding what my compensation was going to be for my participation. Like, it would be like, I didn't even bother to have that discussion. Like, first of all, if me, Leah, any of the other people who were helping with organize my role in what on earth is happening in the conference, in the Anarchadelphia conference, I mean, do you think we would have went into a conference with a totally open-ended, non-known agreement? So, Leah, are you in agreement with what I'm saying here? That we knew that day this was our agreement for participation in the event? Leah, are you there?
Yeah. That agreement was something that, we built all of these other projects on top of. We were just going forward at that point. We were trying to get all this content created for this conference based upon that agreement. Right. And I had another conversation with Carmen in the summertime where we discussed that again. I had a separate conversation personally with him that Mark was taking the money from the workshop and he wasn't charging a speaker fee.
And he never objected or disagreed to that during your private conversations with him? Okay. So we're in agreement that we were all in agreement that this was the arrangement that was made verbally through that phone call in the office on a Tuesday of early June. It was either the first or second Tuesday, as I recall, in June.
I don't remember the day, but also splitting hairs, the venue wasn't decided yet. Poppies came in very late into the game.
Right.
The venue, we didn't know where the venue was.
We knew it wouldn't be at the conference proper at Galdo's, but we knew it would be another day outside of the conference proper, okay? But we agreed that I would be taking no stipend to speak, and I would be participating in the conference proper for free, and then I would be doing my workshop as an ancillary addendum to the conference, okay? Billed as part of the conference, but it would be at a different venue somewhere else. We all agreed to that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was, Carmen was solely in charge of the terms and negotiations with you. I'm under the assumption he's editing with you. You guys live 3 blocks away from each other. He's taken the lead on everything regarding you, even albeit a very huge position. But I was handling the terms and negotiations with every other speaker, which was a 25-75 split. Any of them as a reference you can talk to anybody of them. They'll vouch for what was going on.
So that's a good point. You're in charge of dealing with everybody else, and Carmen is in charge of dealing with us. And we're working with Carmen at Mark's house on a weekly basis at this point. He sees us every week.
Right. So this particular day, he was not there editing. And so Leah and I were working in the office on other logistics for what on earth is happening. And we decided, let's call Carmen and see if we can work out what the financial agreements are going to be for Anarchadelphia. That's what we did, and that's when Leah said, okay, I'll get him on the phone, and she called him and put him on speakerphone, and that's when we hashed out all of these details.
The terms and conditions for every other speaker, well, no one was paid for anything.
Okay.
They were flown out. They were flown out and accommodated, and if they did a workshop, they were given 75% of the workshop.
Okay, but there were no speaker stipends.
You told me that a few days ago, and I had no idea. None of the speakers got paid. And also, Discord goes in and out a little bit. Is that normal?
I'm hearing you fine. It might be on your end with how your settings are.
That's why I was saying before. I thought it was bizarre that Carmen told you that we're giving everybody a percentage plus a stipend, because that was inaccurate. That was not what happened.
Okay.
Everybody was just being brought to paid to get here, and fed and accommodated and taken care of like that.
All right. Well, thank you for adding that detail to that. All right. So let's continue on in the timeline. Later in June 2019, it is agreed that the tickets for Mark's workshop would be priced at $120 and would be sold through the Anarchadelphia Conference website, with an understanding that those funds would be held in trust for Mark by the State of Anarchy. So the State of Anarchy would sell the tickets on their website to not split tickets over 2 locations or websites, okay? They would sell the workshop tickets through the State of Anarchy website, and that money would be held in trust for me as my payment for compensation for my participation in the whole conference and allowing, the documentary to be screened and taking part in the panel discussion, etc. Okay. My whole compensation for the conference would only be whoever attended my workshop. That's what I would get. Okay.
Also, Mark, I don't know if this is timeline, but I asked Carmen, I said, Carmen, do people who want to buy workshop tickets have to buy conference tickets?
I remember this conversation.
Said no.
That's correct. So Leah specifically asked, because we wanted to put it on our copy, our, description of my workshop. We wanted to let people know whether or not they would have to buy conference tickets. At that time, Carmen said, no, they don't. They can buy workshop tickets separate from conference tickets. We said, okay, we're going to promote that fact on the copy that we put out regarding the workshop. And we did. We wrote, it's still probably up on my website. Maybe I could even find it. Hold on a minute.
And it was always like that too. I don't know if he said something to you otherwise, but and in the end,
we asked out of a courtesy. We didn't know, and we asked out of courtesy. We wanted to make sure that we were, going along with everything. Everybody was on the same page.
I want my producer to switch over to my website real quick, and because I want to show people there is the preliminary statement that I made, which doesn't have all of these details in it, in the news section of What on Earth is Happening. It's actually still up on the home page as well. Okay, so if you scroll down on the home page, right underneath Sacred Gift of Anger is statement by Mark Passio regarding Anarchadelphia 2019 conference mismanagement. That's the preliminary statement. But I want to go back to the website into the news section and just show people where the workshop details were at, just to make this one point. I'm going to scroll down here to where the workshop is at. Okay, here it is. When we were promoting the workshop, this is the article on the news section where we were promoting the Teaching Natural Law workshop at Anarchadelphia the day after. And here's the graphic that Pat made. Okay, and then under here it has the details and where it would be and the amount. It said click here for tickets. That would take you to, as you see in the URL there at the bottom left, the State of Anarchy's website to buy the tickets for the workshop. And then under there we put note, you do not require a ticket to the main conference to attend Mark's workshop. This was absolutely verbally agreed to by Carmen. Okay, so then
Mark,
that became
that is actually,
yes.
That graphic actually is not the graphic that I made. That's, remember the one that Carmen changed the font and overlapped your picture there?
Oh, yes, right here. I see. Got you.
Every balls with you that he even tried to edit your graphic.
Okay, but you did most of these graphics originally, did you not?
No, but that's my job.
Right.
I mean,
so he actually, you're saying...
There was a power, listen, there was a power struggle between us, okay? Me and Carmen don't like each other. We haven't liked each other for a long time. And Sonny took a backseat.
You're saying he took this graphic, which you were supposed to basically be in charge of, and edited it?
Poppy's Italian Restaurant?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
It
was your job, but he basically came in and edited it to... Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So...
it's not its place. It's just retarded.
So in general, the point we're making by showing this here is that you didn't need a ticket to the conference proper just to come to my workshop. Okay. And we asked Carmen if they did not want it like that, if they wanted to make it so that you could only attend my workshop, you have to have a conference ticket. And he said, no, we're letting people come a la carte. You could buy that ticket a la carte from the conference. You do not have to buy a conference ticket in order to attend the workshop. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that point up, Leah, because it's technically not in my timeline. So I want to switch back over to the slideshow. I'm switching back. Okay, let's continue in the timeline. So it was agreed that they would sell the tickets priced at $120 each, and that they would collect that money through their website. And we had an understanding that those funds would be held in trust for me and given to me after my obligations were fulfilled taking part in the conference, and that I would be given my workshop as compensation. The funds that came in for ticket sales from the workshop as compensation to me for my participation in the entirety of the event. Okay. Later that month, Carmen and Leah were now meeting at my house once a week, editing the documentary. So this was still 3 months before the conference, and Leah and Carmen were basically just putting in 1 day a week on the editing of the project.
Well, I wasn't putting in 1 day a week. I was putting in 4 or 5 days a week because I was preparing all of the material that was going into it,
sure.
figuring out where it goes, and trying to get this together.
Right. So the prep work with media was your responsibility, and you were doing that more than a day a week. I'm simply talking about actual editing work on the timeline in the video editor was taking place, in the video editing program was taking place 1 day a week at this point. Okay. So then the next month, Carmen and Leah attempted to ramp up work on the documentary project by setting a 3 times a week editing schedule. Okay. In July of 2019, and this became a problem for me as well, because Leah was calling me frantically, telling me how many times Carmen was canceling. And she's like, we're never going to get this done. You have to do something. Okay. But we'll get to that. So July of 2019 and into August of 2019, Carmen continuously cancels editing work with Leah in order to train for 2 mixed martial arts fights over the summer. Carmen canceled editing work with Leah by text message. These are the documented cancels that we know about for sure, that we can prove. Okay. He canceled with Leah to work on the documentary project via text message to her phone on July 19th, 26th, and 31st, and then again on August 2nd, 9th, 14th, and 16th. That's 7 cancellations just in a approximately 1 month period, a little bit less than 1 month. Okay. Carmen also canceled on other dates, verbally or in person, for which there was no record kept. So we can't actually prove that, but Leah has text message proofs of cancellations on at least 7 days. Okay. So that's the work ethic that was being displayed at this point in July of 2019, only like 2 months before the conference, and then the documentary had to be screened. Okay. So let's move on in the timeline. And by the way, Leah was calling me. I mean, Leah really puts a lot of effort into the work she does here at What on Earth is Happening. Okay. She takes it very seriously, and, she's very dedicated to doing the things that she says she's going to do. Okay. So she was calling me frantically going, Mark, you got to do something about this. He's canceling with me again. What are we going to do? It's never going to get done in time. We're never going to be able to show this. It's going to be a mess by the time the conference rolls around. You got to do something. Okay. So here's what we did do. August of 2019, a little bit later in the month, since Carmen has canceled work on the documentary editing so frequently, I had to announce publicly that only a rough cut of the documentary would be shown at the Anarchadelphia conference in September. And that killed me to have to do that. But if I didn't do that and I said, oh, we're going to have the finished, polished documentary out or have it for sale at the conference, I'd be lying to people, and it would be false advertisement. Okay? So I went on this show. You can go back into the records of this show, and I said, the progress isn't going as we expected. I didn't give any details because I don't air out personal things like that. And now I am, because of what happened subsequently that we'll be getting to. Okay? I said, unfortunately, folks, we're only going to be able to show a rough cut. It will not be the finished documentary. We won't be able to release it at the event. Okay, so big disappointment. I was very disappointed. I'm sure people who heard that were. I think people really still got a lot of value out of the rough cut being screened, but you'll see what we had to do to actually get that in an acceptable, screening form. Okay. So the next point here is, due to Carmen's constant cancellations, me and Leah agree that the documentary cannot, amongst each other, we agree that the documentary could not possibly be in an acceptable condition to screen at the conference the following month, and that someone else must be brought in to actually work on the editing of the film. Okay. And I'm in panic mode now because I had hardly any money to spend on this. Like, donations for this project were not coming in at any significant rate at this point. Most people didn't even know about it. We had no
There was no active campaign to get donations for the documentary.
We
at this
had
time.
no campaign to collect documentary
We were
donations.
just pushing it forward because we wanted to do it for this conference.
Right, exactly. Okay. So Leah is saying to me in private conversations, you have to hire somebody to finish this editing because Carmen's not getting the job done and it's not going to be ready for the conference even to show a rough cut. So now I'm like, shit. Now I need to pay somebody just to honor my word that a rough cut's going to be shown. So now that started hurting my finances because I had to go out and try to find a video editor and pay them out of my own pocket to get the documentary done. So I'm losing money participating in the conference now. Okay. So we reached out to my friend and colleague, Craig DeVideo, great guy, always willing to help in a capacity. If he knows about it, this guy is very generous, willing to help you out. Okay. So we said, Craig, our editor's not working out. He's sort of flaking out on us and canceling a lot. We need somebody who's very dedicated and is good and will really, take instruction well, is technically very good at what they do and will not break our bank either, because I can only afford to pay them, a somewhat modest rate. I mean, video editing can be like, $200 an hour. All right. It can go up to that high. All right. So I said, it's got to be a reasonable rate, somebody that understands this is a low budget production and they'll be willing to help us out with a decent rate. And Craig came back and said, I have someone for you. She's very talented. She's very dedicated. She will take it very seriously. And I have full confidence she could be the person to help you out with this, and she'll give you a reasonable rate. So I, at that point, hired the woman that he recommended, named Nia Bullock, to ensure that the documentary Rough Cut would be ready in time for the conference. See, these are all the things behind the scenes people don't see, folks. In order to honor my word, that's what I did to go into this conference prepared. Okay. Carmen, who did not honor his word to edit the documentary into an acceptable condition in time for the showing, the screening at the conference, that's how he behaved. And then I actually went out and hired somebody because he didn't fulfill his obligation as a volunteer. If you're not going to do that, don't agree to do it. Don't say you're going to do it. And then complain that you're not being paid. Okay. Well, would things have changed if I said, Carmen, now I'm going to pay you? See, that's the whole point, folks. You don't get upset about things that aren't done. You honor your agreement. This is what you said you were going to do, then you should go out and do that. So if you say, I want $100 an hour, then that'll be our agreement. If you say, I'll do this for free for you, that's our agreement. You honor your word. It's very simple. It's not hard to do either. People think, say one thing and, do another. No, it's very easy to say one thing and do that thing. It's not that difficult. You just stick to your word. You make your behaviors align to what you say you're going to do. But that didn't happen with Carmen. Okay, so I paid out of my own pocket Nia's rate, which I won't disclose, but it was very reasonable, and she was very good at what she did. Okay, because it's not really anybody's business what I paid her. Okay, and I'm telling you, I would just want to thank her personally because she is a very talented woman. She's very good at what she does. She takes her craft very seriously. She shows up and she works the whole time. I only sat in an actual couple of editing sessions with her, but I was highly impressed. Okay? No mess around and no nonsense approach. Okay? Leah, would you agree with that assessment of Nia?
I thought she was excellent. I mean, when she started, moving of the timeline around, it was like she was so adept at it, and it started just coming together. Her skill was unbelievable. She was very good. I'm in total agreement. Also, too, we had a couple of other people that contributed to the documentary that summer. We had Nate Cap and the amazing graphics that he did, and we had Mitch Thompson, who was doing amazing work as well. And we would have loved to have funding for them as well at that time. Yes. And that's hopefully something we can do with what we're getting now. Guess what? We're going to need more graphics help to refine some graphics, and we have a budget now. So, we can. Well, I got you. I'll do it for free.
There you go, Pat. Thank you, man. Because, I mean, we could pay people now, since generous donations have come in for this project specifically, you know. And I'll tell you what, if anything's left over, folks, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do some sort of an outreach with pressing a lot of these presentations and figuring out a way to get them to groups of people that wouldn't ordinarily receive them. Okay, I don't know how that's going to work, but we're going to figure something out, like with getting some free documentaries out there on DVDs to people. Okay, that more of that later. But I'm telling you, like, all of the money that comes in for this documentary, we're going to budget toward either producing the documentary or distributing it somehow in ways that we would not have been able to do. So that's you know, every dollar that comes in from this is going to be spent toward this effort of educational outreach, which this documentary project is all about.
And also, I'd like to mention that, you know, we've never done this before. We were kind of stumbling our way through it, pulling this amazing project together. You know, it was very magical in some areas, and it was, you know, a trial and error in others.
A learning experience.
As well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a big project, a full-length documentary. You know, this documentary is probably going to clock in around, you know, when it's all said and done, around an hour and 20 minutes or so. That's a huge project, you know, for a first-time documentary undertaking. So
and also it's really evolved quite a bit.
Right.
I mean, in the beginning, originally it was this hard drive with pictures and so on and so forth. And I just want everybody to know that I originally quoted Mike Martin at $2,400, 3 months, because from what the original content that it would have been able to get it done, but it evolved into something so much larger.
There was a learning curve. There was this incredible learning curve. We started putting it together, and we came across using all of the stock video sites. We suddenly, you know, it came alive. So we had to do a lot of changing up with a lot of the still images to video images, you know, and we had that beautiful narration by Janet ESP.
Right.
As well. She's another person that contributed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if I remember anybody as we go along, I'm going to make sure I give them a thank you.
Without a doubt. It's a group effort, and I'm telling you, a lot of people contributed talent and resources. And, you know, just having said that, I want to say Carmen's competent as a video editor. You know, his skills are good. Okay, I didn't have any technical problem with him as an editor, but it was his work ethic that was problematic.
He was good as an editor, and he was good as a sound person.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. He definitely knows his
sticking
technical.
to the schedule
without a
not
doubt.
working out.
He's definitely a good sound guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Do sound with me.
All right. So that being said, I was now paying Nia as a video editor using my own private money, not donations coming in through What on Earth is Happening, just whatever I could contribute. And it totaled in the thousands of dollars. Okay. I'm not going to get into the exact figure, but it was, you know, it was a significant amount. And I had to do this since Carmen's agreement to volunteer to complete the project was not honored by him. Okay. That's what necessitated that. So then at a future point in August of 2019, we don't have the exact date that this happened, my video editing computer, my video editing PC, which is a Core i7 PC that I custom built, was moved into Carmen's house for anytime access by Leah, Carmen, and Nia. Okay. Carmen was still working on the project when he found the time. Nia became basically the lead editor at this point, and Carmen was still supposed to work on sound editing and mastering for the documentary audio track. Okay, so at this point, I really needed...
Hart,
yes.
Right. Logan Hart was the contributor. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yes.
Logan Hart did this beautiful, incredible soundtrack.
He did the score.
And it had to be the score, and
yes.
it had to be placed into the it had to be mastered and placed into the timeline, and that was one of the tasks that Carmen agreed to do.
Right. And as we'll see, that was also neglected, but we'll get to that in a moment. But basically, what we did is we moved my computer that was being used to edit the project at this point into Carmen's home because people were in and out of here at all different times of the day and wanting to show up at different times. And I really needed to focus on my presentation and my workshop at this time. This is when I was building those things for the conference, the main part of the conference when I would deliver my presentation, Sacred Gift of Anger, and the day after the conference when I would deliver the workshop, Teaching Natural Law. So I couldn't, I tried to deal with it, and it was really disrupting my personal workflow. I have to get into like a headspace before a conference to say, okay, here's what I want to lay out. This is what I want people to understand. This is what I'm going to be talking about. And I have to then go into focus mode with, looking at my outline, saying, oh, how am I going to arrange this? What are the slides going to look like? What images am I going to pick and ultimately put into the final result? And then build all those slides. And think about how my discussion is going to flow as I go through the slides. So, I couldn't have a million people running around in my house and showing up at all different times of the day while I'm trying to get this work done. It was very distracting. So I said, look, somebody needs to take the computer, and just then you could edit round the clock if you want, anytime. But, I need focus and quiet here. And I was very on edge because thinking this was going to be a debacle. Okay. Luckily, it all really got pulled off very well at the conference. Okay. Through people's hard work, actually. Okay. But at this point, I was very nervous. I had a lot of work to do on my personal slides and lectures for the event. And I just couldn't have a lot of people in my private living space and where I'm working, all hours of the day and night. So at this point, we decided someone's going to take the computer, okay? And Leah originally agreed to take the computer, but Carmen did not want to travel to Leah's house, which was just outside the city limits of Philadelphia in Ballackinwood at the time. And he's like, no, I'll take it and we'll bring it to my house in South Philly, and Leah, you'll have to come to my house, because Carmen didn't want to do the traveling to, continue to work on it. Nia was fine with that, but not Carmen. Okay. So let's move on. August through September of 2019, Leah asked Carmen, and multiple times I should add in this slide, how many people have purchased tickets to attend Mark's workshop? Carmen says he does not know what that figure is to Leah.
He tells me he's got to look it up. I've asked him numerous times. We wanted to know, how's the workshop selling? How's it doing? And then Mark eventually was getting all the materials prepared to create the folders for the material that he was handing out to the people that came. So we needed to know, but I could never get an answer from Carmen. We were completely blind going into the workshop, how many people were going to show up there.
And he promised, I'll check, I'll get back to you, but never gave us those statistics. Okay. So, and, I can speculate as to why. Maybe he knew the workshop was selling at a very good rate by that point. I think he's actually said that. Okay.
Of course he knew. We all knew. I don't know why we were in more contact during this time.
He told me multiple times, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that. Well, I'll look it up and get back to you.
Sure he did.
We were asking him, can you even give us a list so we know how many people?
Yes, we asked for a list of the people's names.
Right, and nothing. He would never turn over those statistics.
Leah asked me, I gave her all the information as soon as she asked me.
Well, that was afterwards.
This was after the fact.
That was after the conference, right?
We needed all the emails because we tried to get an email list of everybody that had attended, and somebody else passed around an email list, and it got all convoluted. So we just decided to get all emails from the actual ticket sales.
Right. You see, Pat, since Carmen was our liaison, we didn't really, go to you to take you off of other aspects of the conference you were working on, because we knew you were like the technical guy mostly, and graphics and the website. So we didn't go to you because we had been dealing with Carmen as a liaison.
And I saw him, at least once.
Right. We were,
if not twice,
in his physical presence, and you were in another state, so that's why we just kept dealing with him.
A little lifted off my shoulders. It was nice to have him taking care of that. Or so I thought.
Right.
But also I'd like to, just explain what happened the day of the workshop. When we went into the workshop room, there was a divider put up on the wall. There were a number of tables up, and people started pouring in the door. And we were saying to the staff, we took our photocopies. How many folders did you end up making for that, Mark? 60,
I made
30?
60 folders total
60 folders.
because I thought the maximum that would possibly show up would be 50 people.
Yeah, because of fake-ass Christians, we got,
that's
around
crazy.
70 people. The entire fake-ass Christians, we only got about 70 people.
Right.
So we thought it would probably be around that.
And that was a major presentation that I delivered. This is a workshop that's an add-on to a conference. I honestly really expected about 40 people coming in the door. So when like people started just pouring in, as we're going to get to, I was shocked, and it felt really good that many people wanted to come and attend my workshop. They were very generous to give their hard-earned money to pay that added ticket to come and see the workshop. And I was just so thrilled that many people came out because it was a big surprise to me.
We were running over to the staff going, do you have a photocopy machine? Can you photocopy these?
Right.
They photocopied, 10 or 20, and people kept pouring in the door. And the staff had to open up the wall in the room and bring literally in these giant tables that seated 15 people. They had to put 3 more tables in. And it was insane. We couldn't believe it. But unfortunately, we couldn't
prepare for that. We couldn't prepare for that because we weren't given the data of how many people had purchased workshop tickets. I think I know why Carmen did that. He didn't want to give us those numbers because then I would have known how much compensation to expect for my workshop after the conference. And he didn't want me to have that figure until right up to the point where we saw how many people were showing up. That's my speculation regarding
it. I asked Carmen, I said, Carmen, where's the list so we can check people in? And he said he didn't bring it. So we literally had no idea people coming in the door. We had no way to say, did you pay? Did you not pay? We just assumed that people, Mark made an announcement for anyone that didn't pay.
We went on the honor system and we told people.
2 people came up and
pay for a ticket on the website. Please see Leah at the table and pay for the conference. But guess what? If they didn't have it, I would have, let them attend or pay a partial donation to whatever they thought was appropriate. I wouldn't throw people out who really wanted to come and see something. I've done that before at many events of mine where people have come and said, I don't have the money to attend, but I really want to see this. And I'm like, if you can give a donation, go ahead. If not, go ahead and go in.
I can vouch for that because I worked the front door at one of the Free Your Minds, and it was right before I became your assistant, Mark. And people were let in. People that didn't have money are always let into these events. If they
asked, all they had to do was ask. If they said, I really want the knowledge, I really want to participate in this and get this knowledge, and asked, would you allow me to come in for a lesser donation or for free? We allowed it every time.
Every event we've ever had, people who can't pay are let in.
Right. Okay,
or they're allowed to volunteer. Go ahead.
Right. Sorry. Exactly. We might have said, could you help us set up chairs or could you help us break down afterward? So, people were, willing to do things like that, and we were willing to accept that. Okay. So continuing with the timeline, Nia then took over editing of the documentary on a 4-day per week schedule with Leah. Carmen was sitting in on the editing a few times during the first week, but then he moved on to organizational work for the conference after that point. He neglected to complete the editing and mastering of the audio soundtrack for the documentary, which he originally agreed to do in time for the conference premiere. So people who attended and were at the rough cut premiere of this documentary probably noticed that there was a lot of audio work that was left undone. And there were things that were not mastered properly, were not in proper sound levels even. And sound kind of was too loud in certain places, was too low in others. And this was unfortunately because Nia was scrambling to get other work done to finish it. She couldn't do it all in the time frame, and Carmen was supposed to share duties and do some of these things at night after they had broken, after Leah and Nia had broken doing work on the main timeline during the day. Carmen was supposed to do work with the audio and did not complete that work either. So it was a continued neglect of his agreement to volunteer to finish the documentary and get it into respectable shape to premiere at the conference. Okay. Now here's a big crux of the whole thing that happened coming up. And Carmen has made this a big point. He's made this a big aspect of telling his side of the story. Okay, so pay attention to this part here. Okay, August 27th, 2019, Mark is given a $1,000 donation by Mike Martin, facilitated by Patrick Leach. Mark is not told why Mike is sending these funds and simply assumes it is a donation, which Mike told Mark previously that he may send at some future point to help Mark continue his work with the documentary and with other things at What on Earth is Happening. Mike had told me, I'll contribute to you at some future point or give you more money to work on the documentary. Didn't say when, but left that open-ended. So I'm going to show you the actual screenshot from my Skype program of the conversation that took place between me and Pat. And then this is a big point of contention of what Carmen says this $1,000 was for. But I want everyone who's in the viewing and listening audience to just think, if this is the conversation that took place between you and another individual, what would you think? Would you think that this was given for some other reason other than the facilitation of a donation? I'm going to show you the actual words, the actual screenshot that took place in that conversation. So here it is. August 27th, 2019. This is a Skype screenshot, okay, of a conversation between myself and Patrick Leach. Tuesday, August 27th, 2019. 2:49 p.m. Pat writes, Mark, what's your PayPal? Going to send you $1,000. I wrote back, look, and folks, people will learn this about me. You see how I'm frugal with words. Like on the air, I'm a blabbermouth, right? If I'm writing and typing something, I get right to the point and I answer very simply and succinctly, and I don't write and drawn out paragraphs, okay? I'm, just get right to what we're talking about. So I didn't go on asking tons and tons of questions. It's like I'm working on other stuff. I don't like sitting at the keyboard typing. I don't like email. I hate email. Email is like my most dreaded part of the day, to go through my email and answer what I need to. Okay. And even on Skype, I am very efficient, let's say. Okay. So Pat asked me, what is my PayPal email address? And I just gave it to him. It's mark@whatonearthishappening.com, which I got back to him a couple of, 3 minutes later. Okay. In that same minute, Pat says, great, that will, and he forgot the word be here, but I get the point of what he's saying. That will be coming through from Mike Martin. Would love to get an interview with you sometime this week to help promo. Okay. And then I wrote back the next minute, I want to know if you and Carmen want to come on What on Earth is Happening this week for a conference promo, right? Because I figured that, that'll reach more people. If we're going to promo the conference, let's do it big. Come on the show and we'll promo it. And Pat, in that minute, says, yes, definitely. Next Sunday? ? And I wrote back, this Sunday. See, a man of few words when it comes to getting things done with people, okay? And Pat goes, perfect. I just let Carmen know. And then that show happened. That's a matter of record. Okay. That's it. There's nothing else followed that on Tuesday, August 27th, 2019. And actually nothing else was said about that. I believe it was that later that day, the donation came through from Mike Martin's PayPal to my PayPal. And that was it. Nothing was ever told to me before, during this conversation, or after this conversation, what that money was for. It was said $1,000 will be coming to me from Mike Martin. It was not, this is for the conference. This is toward paying you. This is, your compensation. So Carmen has tried to make this a big point of contention in his argument that this was like my payment for the conference. This was my compensation. We're going to show screenshots of Carmen saying, this was supposed to be my entire compensation for the conference. And I agreed to that because he told Pat to go take that money to me and make that arrangement with me that I would not be receiving my workshop funds, that I would be allowing the State of Anarchy to hold those workshop funds for them and their expenses in return for taking this $1,000 donation from Mike Martin. which was never, ever spoken to me, never left someone else's lips and arrived at my ears under any circumstances, or never was communicated by text to me ever once. No one can produce those records. No proof of that can never be produced because it did not happen.
This is a story that Carmen is now putting out on his podcast and on social media. He's come up with this story that he tried to buy out the workshop with $1,000.
We're going to show the screenshots.
In advance.
We will be showing those screenshots.
He told us that the workshop was selling so much it was overshadowing the conference. We had no idea how the ticket sales were going, and this is like crazy. Even in the negotiations afterwards, this was never even brought up. This is his spin to the world to try to make everyone think that he didn't do anything wrong. And it was all just, well, they were going to keep all the money for the workshop, and they incorporated it as the fourth day of the conference. And Pat, who lives in another state, suddenly became the liaison between you and the conference, when all along Carmen was the only one dealing with you and me.
So, Pat, do you want to add to that? Were you ever told, offer Mark this as compensation for his involvement in the conference?
No, listen, Carmen never told me to do anything. It wasn't like that. Carmen's not my boss. All right. Before this conference, before I came up with, I had become good friends with Mike. He's a bit of a mentor to me. He's very successful, intelligent, gives me good advice.
Mike's a great guy, very generous guy.
He's always had my back.
Knowledgeable guy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I had asked him if he was willing to contribute to your participation back in November.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And
but you were never at any time under any impression that this was, quote, quote, buying me out of the compensation that was coming in from my workshop, or I was agreeing not to take the workshop sales in return for this donation.
Oh, no, hell no.
Okay, well, because that is what Carmen has said now. And we'll be showing screenshots of that were taken from social media. So let's continue in the timeline, okay? So let's keep in mind that $1,000 because you'll be seeing more about it later, okay? So September 7th, 2019. Only 5 days before the Anarchadelphia 2019 conference would begin. This was Saturday, September 19th, and the conference was going to begin on Friday of that week. So 6 days, 6 days before the conference, 5 or 6 days, I can't quite recall. But Carmen called me on that weekend before the event and asked to borrow just about all my personal equipment, my technical equipment, in lieu of renting any equipment for the conference 5 or 6 days before the event was to begin. Could you imagine this? Okay. Imagine you're hosting a conference and you rented no technical equipment, no projectors, screens, podiums, lighting rigs, all of this. Okay. Cameras. Here's what he borrowed from me. So I agreed to allow the State of Anarchy to borrow all of these equipment. Okay, the following items that I'm going to list here, free of charge, no rental fee, all belonging to me for use to host the Anarchadelphia conference. And I didn't even tell most people this until now. Okay, I lent them my whole video editing rig to live stream the event, which is a powerful enough computer to get that job done. Okay, so I lent them my Windows 10 custom built desktop computer. And by the way, we're going to say in a little bit, my producer, Mike Seaman, also ran that computer to live stream the event because they didn't have someone, who was actually tasked with that either. And he did that on a voluntary basis for free for this conference. Lent his expertise toward that.
Shout out to Mike. What a guy.
Mike's incredible at what he does.
Absolutely.
So I also lent them my 11-foot projection screen and actually gave it to them after the event and said, I don't want it back. You can keep that, because I really don't have a need for one that big. If I give one here, I usually bring my, 8-footer that I have. So I gave them it was like a $350 11-foot projection screen. And I donated that to State of Anarchy. I lent them my Epson 5500 lumen projector with my projector stand. I lent them 2 of my Panasonic 4K cameras with tripods. I lent them my PA podium, the actual lectern. Okay? It should really, instead of a podium, it's actually called a lectern. I lent them 2 softbox lighting rigs with bulbs and tripods. And I lent them various cables and adapters that they would require for all this equipment. All free of charge, no rental fee at all. Because I considered I'm bailing them out of a jam of not actually securing any of that equipment that close to the event. I almost fell off my chair in my kitchen when I get a call from Carmen. I'm sitting there, making a smoothie, and he says to me, Mark, I got a question to ask you. I'm like, what? Go ahead. And he's like, can we borrow some equipment? And I'm like, yeah, what do you need? And he's like, he starts the rundown of the equipment, and I'm like, you didn't rent any of this stuff? Like, you don't already have this? And he's like, no, so he was telling me, like, he kind of thought that they were coming in under budget and they were going to ask me to lend them this so that they wouldn't have to rent it. And I'm like, dude, it's like,
early on that
it's less than a week before you're going live with this event, and you're calling me the weekend before the event asking me to lend you all this stuff. It's like, first of all, that's just, it's highly unprofessional and just not done. So I thought that was very weird that this was being asked of me so close to the event. But of course, I'm not going to deny him. I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to do that for you. Go rent it. I said, okay, yeah, sure. Come and borrow whatever you want, but make a list of what you're taking from here and make sure everything gets back to me, because this is, a lot of this is not only from my own pocket and equipment that costs a lot of money, but a lot of this was donated to me as well from listeners. And I want to continue to keep it as an investment in what on earth is happening. So I continue to do this work. And so I'm like, please, you got to promise me you're going to take very good, responsible care of it, and you're going to return it to me in a timely fashion. And to Carmen's credit and the other organizers, they did. Nothing was broken. Everything was very well, respectfully treated, and everything was returned to me.
Most of it was brand new. The projector was brand new. Speakers were pretty much brand new.
Right. Okay, so the technical production of the Anarchadelphia live stream and video and audio recording was done by What on Earth is Happening producer Mike Seaman. And Mike, I'm sorry, I got your name spelled wrong. I'm going to correct that right now. No, it's being corrected right now. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Hold on. Okay.
That was probably my fault.
Yeah, it was done by What on Earth is Happening producer Mike Seaman for the duration of the entire Anarchadelphia event for free on a totally volunteer basis. And he was assisted in that technical capacity by Pat Leach to do the live stream and recording. So those guys did a fantastic job. Their work ethic is beyond reproach. Okay. So then I spent several months promoting Anarchadelphia on my weekly radio show right here on What on Earth is Happening. And I calculated approximately how many ticket sales I helped facilitate directly through the What on Earth is Happening website through click-throughs, through the banner click-through that I put on my website. I was able to somewhat track that amount and calculate an approximation. This might not be the exact figure, but this is an approximation of how much money flowed into the State of Anarchy, their conference, directly as a result of my promoting the event and putting a banner on my website for Anarchadelphia 2019. I helped to sell approximately $20,800, just shy of $21,000 worth of tickets for Anarchapulco 2019 through banner click-throughs on my website. Were it not for me promoting this event, the event certainly, I'm not bragging here. I'm just saying what the truth is of the matter. If I didn't promote this event and take part in it, the conference would certainly not have been as successful as it was. Certainly not as many people would have even known about it. It would not have, reached their eyes and ears had I not done the months of promotion toward this conference. And I'm not bitter about that. I'm just saying that that's the case. I was willing to do that promotion. That's part of my a word to help promote the event and to take part in the event. Of course, I'm going to help promote an event that I'm a part of. I don't see that enough with other speakers, quite frankly. I just have to say that. Other speakers do a poor job. Perhaps they're not technical enough to really run their own websites and get advertisement out in a timely fashion. But other speakers, I see them, they're speaking at events. They're listed on the event webpage, and they don't have any banner on their home page of I'm going to be speaking here, or they don't put a poster up and say, hey, check this out, download this, or go to this website and check, I'm going to be speaking here. It's like they just let the event promote it. And it's never as successful. It's always more successful if the speakers help to promote the event. So I try to take part in that process. And this is my estimation of about how many ticket sales myself I was responsible for through What on Earth is Happening. And admittedly, that's an estimate, but I'll bet you it's pretty close. Okay. Continuing with the timeline from September 2019. September 12th, 2019, Leah again asks Carmen how many people bought tickets to Mark's Teaching Natural Law workshop so that Mark can make enough folders containing outlines and notes for the attendees. Carmen again does not give her any data regarding the number of people who bought workshop tickets, and so I made 60 folders for the workshop attendees, which was clearly not enough.
It was the last day of preparation before the conference started.
Right.
And we could not get that information.
So September 13th through 15th, this was the Anarchadelphia 2019 conference proper, is held at Galdo's Entertainment in Philadelphia. Mark presents an original presentation entitled The Sacred Gift of Anger and participates in a special panel discussion on the occult. And I should put, we screened the rough cut of the natural law documentary. I'll have to add that into this slide. Okay. So I fulfilled all of my verbal obligations for this conference. I spoke, I gave my original presentation. Carmen even asked me to present Sacred Gift of Anger, which was one of my proposed presentations. I'm going to talk about this topic at some future point. I'm going to formalize it as a presentation. He wanted me to present this one. He asked me, can you do Sacred Gift of Anger? That's one that you're planning on doing, right? And I said, if you want that one at the conference, that's the one I'll deliver at the conference. And I did. Okay. So I fulfilled all of my verbal contractual obligations for this event. Okay. I spoke at the event, delivered the original presentation that I said I would deliver. I participated in the three-speaker panel discussion with Carmen and Sonny. Okay. The next day, Sunday of the event with Derek Brose and Max Egan. We did a cult panel discussion. And the Saturday night after my lecture, The Sacred Gift of Anger, we screened the rough cut. We premiered the rough cut of Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law documentary film, which was very well received. People gave a lot of comments, also gave a lot of good constructive criticism on how it could be improved. We're working on making those improvements now that we have another editor helping and a small budget for the film, okay, through donations. Continuing with the timeline. September 16th, 2019, Mark's workshop. This was the Monday after the event at Galdo's. So this was my workshop at Poppy's. My workshop, entitled Teaching Natural Law with Mark Passio, was held at Poppy's Italian Restaurant in Philadelphia, just down the street from Galdo's, where the conference proper took place. I provided all of my own equipment for this workshop. Didn't ask any of, equipment from State of Anarchy. Oh, I'm sorry. They did bring the screen that I had told them that they could keep. And we used that screen that was used for the conference for my workshop. Yes. So the State of Anarchy rented this restaurant, Poppy's Italian Restaurant, for the day at an approximate fee of $2,000. Okay, that was the rental fee for the workshop venue. 104 paid attendees turned out at my workshop teaching natural law. And again, I almost fell over seeing people come in. I could not believe it. Okay. This number completely surprised me, as I thought about 60 would be the maximum amount, with somewhere between 30 and 50 being actually expected, like pragmatically. I figured if I made 60 folders, I have way more than enough. Okay. And I needed 44 more. And some people never got notes because we were never given the data of what to expect. They never got, outlines, notes, and, blank sheets of paper to make personal notes on that were part of the folders that we made up for others, because we weren't given the figures on how many people to expect at this event. And I think that was done deliberately. September 19th. So now the conference is over. This is a couple days after the workshop, 3 days after the workshop. Thursday, September 19th. I call this an offer to Mark at lunch. Okay? Carmen, Sonny, and Pat invite me to go to lunch with them in South Philadelphia. After the meal, Carmen told me that the State of Anarchy ended up in the red on the conference. And the number that he shot to me, he said, we're somewhere between 12 and 14,000 in the red on this whole thing. Okay? And Pat later informed me that the State of Anarchy had approximately 5,500 in their accounts at that very time. So it's unclear whether the above numbers were accurate or not, as told to me at the luncheon. It is assumed that the above number included a $4,400 PayPal loan, and the it should say compensation, not composition. Let me just correct that. And the compensation owed to Mark that were collected by State of Anarchy for Mark's workshop sales. The money that was collected, I should say was collected here. Yeah, I'm getting OCD about my presentation, spelling mistakes here, or grammar mistakes. Okay, so we don't know exactly how much they came out in the red, and quite frankly, you know what? It's not really anybody's business but theirs. Okay, the point I'm making here is, did Carmen really tell me the truth at that luncheon that they did in fact end up that much in the red? Pat, I could let you jump in on that point if you would like to.
Oh yeah, sure. We had $5,500 in the bank still.
Okay.
I was going into that lunch under the assumption maybe we owed you $2,000 more.
Okay.
I'm just gonna have to come up with it, let you know that we were in the red. That was the point of it.
Because you still didn't know that Carmen promised me my whole workshop. You thought I had a speaker split, a workshop split arranged.
Yeah, when I was sitting in the workshop, and I'm looking around, my holy shit, $7,500. You know what I mean? Plus your referral fees also.
Right.
So we're short a little bit.
We're going to get to that.
Did you have conversation? Were you having conversations with Sonny and Carmen at that time about any of that? Did you guys mention that or talk about that at all?
I didn't even really see them during the workshop at all.
And that was another part of
afterwards, before the luncheon.
No, I just met them right at Carmen's house, and we walked down to the Triangle.
Because I remember. I remember, Pat, I saw you guys coming down 10th Street, because that's how I approached the Triangle where we had lunch. And, I was behind you guys walking about 2 blocks down, and I saw you come out from Carmen Street and go down 10th Street toward Triangle. So that's, and then I kind of like yelled to you guys, before we went into the pub. Okay. So. I just want to say, that was another part of my compensation was affiliate sales. Remember when we were promoting, people may recall, it was like people who bought tickets through the Passio code, the promotional code Passio on State of Anarchy's website. They would get 5% taken off, and 5% of the ticket sale would go to me. Okay, so affiliate ticket sales were part of my compensation as well. When we calculated all of that through emails regarding the referrals that had been collected with the Passio promo code with the software on the back end of the State of Anarchy's website, we collected all those emails and tallied them, and that was $1,040 worth of affiliate ticket sales, okay, which was part of my compensation, but we'll get to that. Carmen then proceeded to ask me at this luncheon if I would be willing to accept a total of $1,000, and presumably this would be the payment that Mike Martin had already given me on August 27th, 2019, as a total payment for my participation in the Anarchadelphia 2019 conference, and that I would be willing to call it even on my workshop ticket sales, since the State of Anarchy ended up so far in the red for the whole event. He publicly said this aloud. He made this offer to me aloud in front of Sonny and Pat at the table when we were just about finishing up lunch outside. We actually ate at a table outside of Triangle Tavern, and that's when he made this offer to me. He said, we ended up bad in the red. Would you be willing to, basically take the $1,000 we already helped facilitate donating to you? He didn't really use that word. He said that Mike Martin gave you, and take that.
He definitely said we. He's always taking credit for that. He says we. He always says we for a lot of things that I did.
But Pat, you didn't even know he was going to say that.
Did you know he was going to make this offer to me for take $1,000 for your whole compensation?
He feels entitled to Mike's money, just like the money for the documentary, and he would have kept milking that right.
And folks, I just want to say at this point, okay, regardless of whether Carmen was, telling the truth to his other organizers regarding, arrangements that he made, this has nothing to do with the money. Nothing whatsoever. Okay. All this has to do with his integrity and honoring your word. I have spoken at places completely for free, expecting no compensation. I have driven to places to speak where I had to spend my money to get there. Okay? Where I not only not got any money, I had to pay money to even go and deliver the message. Okay? So it's not about the money. I'm not being greedy regarding this. All I'm saying is, if you are a person promoting the principles of anarchy and natural law, part of that is honoring your word and your agreements. That's it. Okay? It's about personal integrity. So I'm going to explain to you what actually happened. Here's the whole crux of the whole matter, and you're going to realize how much I was actually damaged by what happened. Okay? So he made this $1,000 offer for me to take that for the whole event and just basically let the workshop money go to say, hey, sorry you guys ended up in the red. Let's call it even. Okay? So this offer, which Carmen proposed, was not discussed with Pat and Sonny prior to their lunch meeting with Mark. Prior to the State of Anarchy's lunch meeting with Mark. Carmen did not tell them he was going to do this at the lunch table. Okay? I immediately refused to accept the offer. I said it outright so that everyone could hear. When he said, would you be willing to do that? I said, no, I'm not willing to do that because that was not our arrangement. That was not our agreement. But I said, let me see what I could do to help you guys out. Okay, if you ended up in the red, I do feel bad about that. I know the conferences don't always end up, in the black, and people often lose money. I know people who have lost over $10,000 or more on hosting a conference smaller than this one. So I could actually imagine, okay? I hosted 2 conferences, folks. The first year we made $2,000 profit on Free Your Mind 1, and the second year we lost $1,500 total. And guess what? That means we budgeted beautifully. Okay, that means we were so accurate in our budgeting that we came within a $2,000 flex line of, figuring out expenses versus what we actually brought in. That's damn good, if I may say so. Okay. But if you total all of that up, right, in between 2 conferences, 10 plus organizers, I can't recall the exact number, made a total of $500 profit. Think about that. How many hundreds of hours of free work and personal expenses and driving and all, promoting and everything we put out. Not everything exactly was meticulously, tightly budgeted. A lot of people put money out of their own pocket. Okay. 2 events with over 10 people helping to organize both events. When you figured it all out, between expenses and amounts made, we made a total profit of $500 between about 10 people in what amounted to like years of work preparing and organizing those events. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of free work, basically. Yeah. But yeah, to expect conferences to like make a lot of money and you end up super in the black and make a huge profit is a very naive perspective. It doesn't work out that way, folks. It's very, very difficult to do. And the people that don't understand that are people who have never even attempted it. And they're talking out their ass. And I'm not going to even get angry about it. I'm just going to say they don't know what they're talking about and they don't know how it works because they've never actually done it. All they can do is flap their gums and say something that they know nothing about and make a jackass out of themselves. Okay. So take it from somebody that has done it twice and then advised on many other conferences. I've actually hosted more than 2 because I've helped host some of the Tesla Energy Independence conferences that were hosted here in Philadelphia as well. Okay. So I've helped host more than 2 conferences actually, and I've gotten fairly decent at being a conference organizer, although, it's very difficult and challenging work and very frustrating work at times. So I get what goes into it. Okay. But, a lot of people want to talk and then they have no personal experience and think that they know what they're talking about. And I'm telling you, people have no idea what goes into conference hosting and organization. So I'm very much in sympathy with the State of Anarchy organizers regarding this because I know what it's about. Okay. So I said, okay, I'm disappointed you guys lost money on this. I didn't think that was actually a drastic amount of money to lose. Okay. I know people have hosted smaller things and lost over $10,000. Okay. I mean, a friend of mine hosted a 9/11 Truth Conference in Valley Forge Convention Center and lost like way over $20,000, possibly even $30,000 on the hosting of the event. Okay. I mean, you got to realize a lot of risk goes into conference hosting and organization. So I'm in sympathy with them here. So I said, let me come back with a counteroffer. No, I'm not agreeing to take only $1,000 for my participation because that is not what we agreed. But I will come back with a counteroffer and I will try to help lighten the, total, burden by taking something off the total that I'm owed. Okay.
Right.
So
I remember you said you were willing to, you'd consider a percentage.
Yeah.
Kind of were left
Right.
at.
Right.
And then we were waiting for an email response.
Right. And as you're going to see, what I actually offered was somewhere around, I believe it ended up being totaled 17 or 18% that I was willing to take off. Okay. But we'll get to that. I don't know if that's the exact figure, but it's something like that. Maybe 14%. I'm not quite sure, but we'll get to that. So I immediately refused the offer and I said I would let them know what I could do and that I would email them a counter offer, okay, to help them out because they ended up in the red. Okay, that was how we left the lunch meeting, where I definitely said I don't agree to take the $1,000 as my full compensation because we agreed to give me my workshop, 100% of it. Okay, that's the agreement I made verbally with Carmen by phone with Leah on the line. Okay, so I said right off the bat, no, I don't accept that. And the other thing I should bring up at this point, and maybe go into it a little bit later, is no payment plan was ever discussed with me. It was never said. And conferences don't work that way, folks. We didn't do For Your Mind 1 and 2 and then say to the people, we said, okay, we're going to give you this much stipend. Okay. We didn't, like, after the event, we didn't go to them and go, can we pay you $20 a week or $100 a week or whatever? It's like, if we agreed to pay you $500, you got the $500 the day you completed speaking. My buddy Michael would go up to them with an envelope and say, there you go. This is what we promised you. And there it is. We were meticulous to our word. Okay. Because we held that money in trust. We didn't spend it and then say it's not there when the time came to pay the person for what they had contractually fulfilled. That's, you don't do business like that. And we'll get to what happened. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to ask at the luncheon was, why are you offering me $1,000? What if you say you ended up that much in the red? Well, what about ticket sales that came in from my workshop? Where's that money? But I never actually got to that because I was almost in shock that I'm expecting well over that figure for my workshop ticket sales. And he's telling me they don't have any money. Will I take the $1,000 donation that Mike gave me as my payment, as my total compensation for the event? So I was just thinking, like, wait a minute, like, something happened here. What happened with all the money they collected in trust for me on my behalf that came in from workshop ticket sales? So I was very confused. Okay. So let's continue with the timeline and you'll understand what happened. So September 19th, 2019, I asked Leah because I knew this was going to start to be a runaround at this point. When you're owed a significant amount of money that came in from unexpected proliferous workshop sales from very generous people who spent their hard-earned money to come and see my talk. And I'm going to get to in a moment how I consider that workshop a tremendous success. And guess what? I'll tell you what. I consider it was worth way more than even the ticket sales that came in as a result of what happened following that workshop. Okay? There was very good positive fallout as well. It's not just all negative. Okay? But we got to talk about the negative right now. But let me tell you something, folks. The value that people came away from that, they emailed me and told me. And some people were like, oh, I knew a lot about this stuff because, I'm younger. I follow computing and technology, and they knew what this involved. But a lot of people said, you showed me things in this workshop I never knew it was involved in what you do, and now I do. But we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so I asked Leah to act as a liaison between myself and the State of Anarchy organizers to work out this monetary compensation issue. Which
is something that I do on a regular basis. I liaison.
Look, if I want to work on other things, or even if I don't want to deal with it emotionally, maybe I don't quite get along, or I butt heads with people in a certain way. Our personalities might rub up against each other. I'll say to Leah, please deal with this for me, please. That's what her job is. This is what Leah does here at What on Earth is Happening.
As a volunteer.
She helps me to facilitate my work so that it becomes easier for me to do. So this is normal, okay? I will often say, I'm delegating this responsibility to you, okay? So can you deal with this? I'll be working on this, okay? Some other task, okay? And she'll do this for me, okay? And that's normal operating procedure here at What on Earth is Happening. And if people don't like it, tough, quite frankly. Nobody's really entitled to my time. You can't say to somebody else, you must give me your time. I love people who email me. I don't want to get sidetracked, but people email me like, Mark, you have to talk to me. I must talk with you. No, I don't need to talk to anybody. I can choose through my free will of association who I speak with, who I spend my time with, who I interact with, who I deal with. Period. The end. That's called freedom of association. Okay, so it's the same thing here. If I want to say Leah's going to handle this for me, she's my, she's acting on my behalf because I've allowed her, I've asked her to act in that capacity. Then you got to deal with the liaison that I set up to deal with this problem. I don't have to interact directly with people, but apparently they thought that was like a slight to them. But so in a text message, Leah informed Carmen that Mark has asked her to act in this liaison capacity. Okay. The next day, Carmen returned all of my technical equipment, and in his defense, or just saying something good about him, every piece of equipment was in perfect condition. Nothing was missing. Nothing was damaged, and he returned it to me in a very timely fashion. Only like 4 days after my workshop had been completed. Okay, so I have no problem with that. The State of Anarchy took very good care of the equipment they borrowed and returned it to me all intact. September 20th, Leah sent an email to the State of Anarchy on behalf of me declining the State of Anarchy's offer to Mark to accept $1,000 as total compensation for my conference participation. This letter stated that the actual total owed to Mark by the State of Anarchy was $13,520. Now, I'm going to give you the breakdown of this. Now, people think, it's such a huge number. First of all, that's not a lot of money, folks. Okay? When you realize how much expense a lot of things go into things, and especially to pay people to do technical work and editing work, that's not that much money. Okay? So, this total included, here's the breakdown. Okay, my workshop sales, which were agreed verbally by Carmen to be given to me after the event, after I hosted the workshop, 104 tickets sold as per Carmen's own numbers, which I finally demanded after the workshop. And he went and got the records and told me we had 104 ticket sales through State of Anarchy website. So we finally got the number of 104 paid attendees through the State of Anarchy. Okay, the tickets were sold at $120 per ticket. That total is $12,480 for my workshop alone. Okay, and Mark's affiliate ticket sales totaled $1,040. These were the sales that I received the 5% of through the click-throughs from the banner on my website, which each click-through that was followed by an actual purchase generated an email on the back end of the server that State of Anarchy used, sent an email to me saying, this is your affiliate sale, and this is how much it totals. You will be receiving this much for this ticket sale. We took all of those emails, we put them into a folder, we tabulated and checked the total of how many affiliate sales I got from State of Anarchy, and it totaled $1,040 in affiliate sales. So my agreed verbal contract conversation with Carmen, that would be my compensation for the participation in the event, was my workshop, 100% of my workshop, in lieu of a speaker stipend and or a workshop split, which was $12,480, plus my affiliate ticket sales, which was $1,040. Okay, so that is $13,520 total compensation that I was owed. In this same email, in which I broke all of this down, I said that I would agree to cover the cost of the restaurant rental for my workshop and deduct that from the State of Anarchy's total figure that they owed me and accept a lump sum of $11,520. So if somebody can do the math, okay, what percent of $13,520 is $2,000? Okay. It's somewhere around, I think, 18%. I could be wrong. It might be less than that. I don't know if anybody can do that math real quick and give me the figure. But, you know, it's not insignificant to take $2,000 off of a bill of $13,000. Okay? That's a significant amount. Okay? So, I agreed to take that off the total figure and accept $11,520. I did not agree to, nor was I willing to accept a monthly, weekly, or any other payment plan. I don't want this in, chunks over time where I'm going to probably have to be hounding and beating down someone's door to say, hey, you still owe me $8,000. Do you have another $1,000, this month? That wasn't my agreement. I never made such an agreement. Okay? If somebody agreed to sell something that was very expensive for you, like an old heirloom diamond ring or something like that, and they took in, $10,000 for the ring, and you said, well, where's my money that you agreed to help sell for the ring? I agreed to give you $1,000 on the sale, so where's my $9,000? And they go, you know what? I don't have it, and I'm going to pay it to you in small increments over 9 months. I'll give you $1,000 a month for 9 months. And you're like, that wasn't our agreement. You said you'd sell it, and you'd give me, you'd take 10%, you'd give me the $9,000. We never made any agreement about a payment plan. I'm under no obligation to accept the payment plan from someone who collected money on my behalf to be held in trust for me. Now, here's what happened, folks. See, here's the crux of the whole thing, okay? We're going to get to the crux of the whole thing. Okay, in the conference call that happened, because they finally admitted what happened. Okay, so I said that I'd take off $2,000 and accept $11,520 in a lump sum payment. That weekend, Carmen called Leah by phone and blew up at her and saying about my workshop, accusing us at What on Earth is Happening of holding a, quote, separate event which competed with the conference, and accusing my workshop attendees of being too cheap to pay for conference tickets, quote unquote. Being too cheap to pay for conference tickets. That's what he said about people who attended my workshop. Okay? Carmen launched many ad hominem attacks toward Leah and me, actually, screaming at her and verbally berating her and blaming What on Earth is Happening for the financial failure, quote unquote, of the Anarchadelphia 2019 conference. Okay? Absolutely, we had nothing to do with the financial failure of this event. We had everything to do with the success of this event by my participation and promotion of the event. And I verbally, contractually fulfilled every obligation that I made by my word. And then some, giving equipment that I was under no obligation to do so for free without a rental fee. Okay? Paying for an editor when Carmen told me he was going to complete the documentary in time for the event in a timely fashion, and then reneged on that agreement and did not complete that work in a timely fashion, and I had to hire an editor out of my own pocket. So you could say I lost money there by agreeing to that, because I didn't want to be a false advertiser and go against my word to the people I said we're going to be showing my film at this event. I had to somewhat back down from that agreement and say, folks, I'm sorry, but we can't honor that. We have to only show a rough cut. That hurt me to have to do that.
And we worked really hard even just to get that ready. We worked for months and months.
Leah, you were were obsessed.
I worked 12 hours
Leah was
a day
obsessed on this, okay?
I was.
Without her, it wouldn't have happened, period. The end. That's it, okay? Anybody that says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're lying, because you worked meticulously and in an obsessive way to get that documentary in the shape that it was in for the rough cut, okay? All right, so let's continue with the timeline. September 25th, 2019, this is where we really found out what really happened, and they did admit verbally to me what happened, okay? This was a Skype conference call, and this is a big crux of the timeline here, so everybody pay attention. September 25th, 2019, Mark, Leah, Carmen, Sonny, and Pat hold a Skype conference call for approximately 1.5 hours to discuss the financial situation following the conference. It is confirmed to Mark during this conference call, now listen up everybody, listen up here, okay, that the reason the state of anarchy offered Mark such a low figure for his conference compensation was due to the fact that instead of holding Mark's workshop ticket sales in trust for Mark that had been paid by attendees of my workshop, that they had actually spent that money that they collected for my workshop sales to fund the expenses for the Anarchadelphia 2019 conference itself. Okay? You understand the implications of this.
Pat and I were both on that call.
They agreed to this. So I want to say to Leah and to Pat, I want to ask you both, was this not disclosed during this conference call finally to me, verbally?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Pat? Okay, thank you. Okay, so Pat, you told me at this point that Carmen and Sonny and you, when you were a member of this, you did not allocate that money toward holding it in trust to be paid to me after the event. You actually took ticket sale money in and did not delineate that or put it into any separate accounts or just hold it and set an amount that had to be held, okay? And you used whatever monies came in for the funding of the event as they came in. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So, to me, that is a terrible business practice, and it borders on fraudulent business practice, okay? Most people would call that embezzlement. That the legal term for that would be embezzling funds that are supposed to be held in trust for something other than what you are using them for. So if I collect money for the documentary and I don't use it toward the documentary, then that's fraudulent. Like I'm saying, here's what I want to do with the money that you're donating to the documentary. And if I don't pay an editor, hire and pay an editor, I'm collecting that for a fraudulent purpose. Okay. So in this sense, that money was supposed to be held to be given to me as my compensation for participation in the event. But instead, the organizational team, specifically Carmen and Sonny, Pat was repulsed by this upon understanding what had occurred because he wasn't aware that Carmen made the verbal agreement to pay me 100% of the workshop sales. He thought we were under a split and thought that that money could be covered. But what it was a gamble. Yes, go ahead.
I had also never been I had never been informed that you, Carmen, agreed to put something in escrow. That was never how things were being done. The money that came in was used to finance the event.
Well, I didn't tell him I didn't tell him he had to do that, Pat. Okay, so that would have been a wise business practice to do. But there was no. I never commanded or demanded, I should say, that he do that. I just assumed he would handle it responsibly and then pay me what I was owed after. That's all. Okay, because that's how I do things.
I was willing to move forward in that respect because I am able to pay my debts, or was willing to pay any debts that might have occurred, which I did.
Right.
You know, and hadn't this
And Pat, that's
Bill,
why
going up
I'm
in
considering you honorable in this whole thing, regardless of that particular aspect of the business practice that was conducted and was mismanaged and was gambled upon. Okay, at least you honored and said, I'm willing to pay what you're owed to me. You said, we've made a mistake here. Okay, there was a lack of communication in whatever regard, but guess what? This money was spent. It shouldn't have been spent. That was the wrong thing to do. And you said, I'm willing to make it right. Now, Carmen and Sonny have also said they are willing to make it right, but they didn't put their money where their mouth is because they haven't made it whole and right. Okay. All right. All right. So I just wanted to get that perspective. We're running out of time, so I want to continue with the timeline. Okay. So that's what happened, folks. They funded the conference with my workshop money. And guess what? Take that as the whole crux of this entire show and what happened. Okay? You don't really need to know anything beyond that. I word it like this to people. Imagine if you put, again, shirts on consignment. You go to the store to say you sold 100 of my shirts, okay, at $10 a shirt, okay? So that's $1,000 that you have to give me, right? If there was a breakdown, okay, it's $900 and 100 goes to the store or whatever, right? And then you bring your consignment receipt and you say, here's the proof that we made this agreement. I want my $900. And the store says, oh, we did in fact sell all of your t-shirts, but guess what? We don't have that money. We spent it on our electric and water and gas bill because we were running low on cash this month. And we spent it on our expenses. That's what it's the equivalent to. So I want people to put themselves in that position. Most people never try to put themselves in my position. You know, they want to demand things of me, but they don't actually put themselves in the position that I am occupying. Okay. And dealing with people from all kinds of backgrounds and walks of life and different types of moral persuasions. And just imagine if that happened to you after you put up expenses, you work to make something happen, you fulfill your obligation, and then somebody goes, you know what? We collected that money on your behalf, but we spent it on our expenses. How would you feel about that? You wouldn't feel too good about it. You'd be kind of angry about it if you're being honest with yourself. Okay? So that's all I'm saying. I'm not even going to get angry, folks. I moved through all of that. Okay? I'm just going to ask you to put the shoe on the other foot. Okay, to walk a mile in those shoes and say, how would I feel if this was done unto me? And that's all I'm saying is don't act like that toward other people. You don't want that done to you, so don't do that to other people. That's it. That's the apophatic variant of the non-aggression principle or of the golden rule. Okay, don't do unto others that which you don't want done unto yourself. Very simple. That's the whole principle of what we teach here on What on Earth is Happening. Okay, and I didn't get a contract because I thought I was dealing with people that could act honorably according to a principle like that. But it unfortunately was not the case. Okay, so both Sonny and Pat tell Mark during this conference call that they were both under the impression that Mark had negotiated with the State of Anarchy an agreement similar to most other, if not all the other speakers of Anarchadelphia, and a speaker stipend plus a 75-25 split on the workshop. And Pat says they didn't necessarily even include a speaker stipend. It was just a 75-25 split with speakers who actually did a workshop. No such deal was ever made with Mark, not verbally, by email, by text, nothing. That was never made. We made an agreement by phone, me, Carmen, and Leah, as for a 100% of my workshop and nothing else. And my affiliate ticket sales. That's it. Mark proceeded to ask the State of Anarchy. Now, here's another big crux of the matter during this conference call. I asked the State of Anarchy organizers which one of them made the stipend and workshop split agreement with me.
That was a very poignant moment. Mark said, who made that agreement with me? Which one of you said that to me? And
who did I agree to that with?
Dead silence.
Right. And I said, and what numbers did we agree upon? What numbers did you say you would give me for the stipend for speaking? And what number would be the split percentage on the workshop? Who made that agreement with me? And what numbers were agreed upon? And there were crickets chirping. No one said a word. No one spoke a word after I asked that question because that conversation was had with no one from the organizational team of the State of Anarchy. Never. Okay? So, by the end of the conference call, the State of Anarchy agreed to give me a single payment not a payment plan, which was never agreed to by me, as I've previously said, of $11,520 as per the verbal agreement that Mark made with Carmen for 100% of Mark's workshop plus affiliate sales through whatonearthishappening.com minus the $2,000 rental fee for the workshop venue, which I agreed to pick up to help the State of Anarchy. That was the agreement that we finalized on this Skype call. Okay? Moving on.
Mm-hmm. Also on that Skype call, I let you guys know that I was leaving the State of Anarchy.
Yes. You told me you were displeased with how things had worked out and that you would be leaving and dissolving your partnership in the LLC. That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. September 30th, Pat Leach begins his resignation from the State of Anarchy by filing paperwork to dissolve his affiliation with the State of Anarchy LLC. October 2nd, another Skype conference call was held between Mark, Leah, Carmen, Sonny, and Pat about the financial situation. Mark suggests to the State of Anarchy organizers to pay off their existing PayPal loan and to attempt to get a second loan in order to pay me in full. That was my suggestion because I said, you guys don't have the money. You're going to have to get it from somewhere. You're going to have to take out a loan or borrow it from someplace, a financial institution, PayPal, a family member or members. I said, so why don't you pay off the loan? They'll see that you paid it off in good faith and in a quick time frame. And then perhaps they will give you another larger loan for the State of Anarchy LLC.
Well, that was something I also heard being discussed while I was editing at Carmen's house. The fact that they were eligible for
another PayPal loan.
They were right, exactly. So paying off the loan was something that would allow them to get more money. They were going to actually get more money to reinvest in their own business.
To make this whole, okay, and pay me off so that this would be behind us. And I said you could do that, get the loan, and then transfer that to me via PayPal in one lump sum. And I would be okay with that, even though it came in much later after my obligations were fulfilled and the conference was long over. Okay, so October 9th, Pat reconciled his disparity for the amount that was owed to me by transferring $2,500 to Carmen and Sonny via PayPal to fully cover his portion of the debt that they agreed was owed to Mark. So Pat was trying to get out of the company by this point, which is an actual limited liability corporation, the State of Anarchy. And he wanted to dissolve his affiliations with them, but give them money that would be his chunk of what they would pay to me in one lump sum instead of giving it directly to me. Because I said they could even help pay their loan with that. Don't give it directly to me. I actually said to Pat, don't give it directly to me. I want them to try to make this whole with the full amount. Okay, so don't give me that and then leave them with another chunk. Give that to them.
Well, I wanted to give it to you because we had $5,500 in the bank account.
Right. So see, folks, if I was greedy, right, I would have taken. If I was a greedy person, I would have taken any of the chunks offered to me at any time by any of these people involved. Okay, it's not about the money. It's not. I don't care whether I'm never paid for this. I don't care. Does it affect me? Does it hurt me? Absolutely. Okay. But I long ago resolved that I'm not going to be compensated for my involvement in Anarchadelphia 2019. It's a assured thing in my mind. Okay. So yes. So, yeah, we have limited time. I want to try to blow through the rest of this timeline. Okay. So the point is, I didn't take money from Pat. I said, help them pay off, give that to them. They could pay off the existing loan, and then you could try to pull in another loan and get me paid in full. Then this way you guys can honor your agreement, and, you know, this doesn't have to be publicly aired to anyone.
Well, the problem was they never even called PayPal to negotiate. They would have found out because they don't have any sales coming in. They weren't eligible for a loan. They didn't call PayPal and discuss it with them. They just literally paid the loan and, you know, threw it into the wind.
And then, to my knowledge, no other attempt at a loan from any financial institution was attempted, nor were any personal borrowing of money was any personal borrowing of money attempted, to my knowledge. Okay.
They didn't need my money to pay back the loan. There's enough money in the account.
Okay.
They took my money and then they financed their trip to Mexico, where they are right now.
Technically, you were also stolen from in this regard, because they took that money, which was supposed to be put toward paying me the lump sum.
To return my gear.
Wow.
They refused to return my gear, and it would I wouldn't be surprised if they brought it down to Mexico with them.
Wow.
Every single person that went to the conference and used the affiliate code was ripped off because they expected that to be able to go to market.
That's the real victims beyond me, are the people who paid their hard-earned money to attend my workshop. But I'm going to get to that in a moment, okay? Because I'm going to say why the workshop was a success. So this money was to be used to negotiate the payment of the State of Anarchy's original PayPal loan in order to apply for a new loan to pay me in full. It didn't work out that way because apparently they were rejected for that second loan. October 10th, Pat Leach officially resigns from the State of Anarchy Media, LLC. November 9th, after numerous attempts to contact the State of Anarchy by phone, Leah finally got a hold of them via Skype and did a Skype call with Carmen and Sonny. Leah requested that they email Mark with an update on their plan for his compensation for his payment.
Pat knows how many times I tried to get a hold of them, and they were just totally ditching me constantly.
As do I. Yeah, they did not want to deal with Leah.
Reach out to them.
Right. They didn't want to deal with Leah
ridiculous.
because, Leah, you're pretty meticulous about getting things in writing, too, at least by email. And they know I'll just talk to them on the phone because I hate typing. You know, I hate sitting at a keyboard and typing things. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I kept telling them, just type out what your plans are and send it over.
Because we just
over
wanted
and
it
over, and they
at that
wouldn't do
point
it.
in writing. Right. Okay. So November 10th, Sonny sent an email proposing that Mark participate in a website referral program. Now, I originally in my statement said that this was some multi-level marketing. Okay. It's not multi-level marketing. That is an inaccurate way that I described this program, but it is a website referral program. And they basically asked me to do the same thing that I had just done with the conference. Okay. In the conference, I put their banner on my website, sold a lot of tickets through their website by directing people from my website to theirs. That's called an affiliate program. That's how Anarchadelphia 2019 became successful. And it was a very successful conference, and the speakers were great, and it was a great event. Okay, ruined by all of these shady, things that happened monetarily after the event, but a very successful conference as far as speakers and information, and attendees were wonderful. Okay, so basically what they were proposing to me is put another banner up on your website and allow click-throughs because you have a bigger audience than we do. We'll make the money in our affiliate program, and then we'll pay you through that. Imagine asking me to do the very same thing that they had just completely reneged on their verbal contractual negotiations and asking me to do it again.
And what's stopping you from becoming an affiliate?
There you have it. I mean, if I wanted to start an affiliate program, I could put a banner on my website myself and collect the money. How is that them paying me for what they agreed to pay me when they took the money and funded their own event with it? That's not making anything whole. See, the other thing is, folks, I was never apologized to for any of this. It's like there was no remorse for this having been done.
They were hostile. They were belligerent. They were insulting. They were calling you the great Mark Passio. They were calling me names. They were just aggressively quarrelsome the entire negotiation. And you know what? We would sit down before the meeting and go, let's make sure that we keep them close in our arms. Like literally we said, we had this, meeting before a few times we spoke with them. Let's not push them away. Let's give them a chance.
Right.
Let's hold them close, embrace them.
I wanted to give them every opportunity to make this right.
And we did that for 3 months, and the entire time they just ripped at us. Sonny told me the ball's in our court. Sure. There's nothing you can do about it.
I agree. So at that point, okay, we're very limited on time. We have 10 minutes left in the show. So at that point, I considered the affiliate program offer very insulting, to be quite honest. And I really didn't want to speak with them after that because I felt like that's what you offered me after basically stealing, $12,400 of workshop ticket sales. Okay. So I concluded that Carmen and Sonny from the State of Anarchy at that point were acting in bad faith regarding their agreed upon compensation that I was owed for the Anarchadelphia 2019 conference. So in order to help out the conference organizers, I originally agreed to take $2,000 off the total owed to me if that compensation was fully paid in a reasonable time frame. Okay. After a period of over 70 days, okay, without telling anybody that this was going on at all, okay, I finally considered that this offer is retracted. They're in bad faith. And I retract personally my offer to take that $2,000 off the bill that they are owed me. Okay. So based upon their total default of payment to me, I consider that the official total owed to me by the State of Anarchy to this day, based on their verbal agreements to me, to make their agreements whole and settled, is $13,520. November 26th, I finally went public and released a public statement regarding the situation between myself and the State of Anarchy on the whatonearthishappening.com website and my social media accounts. As of December 2019, Carmen Carangi is claiming that he asked Pat Leach to offer Mark the $1,000 as payment in full in advance of the conference because Mark's workshop was, quote, competing with the conference. But why would the State of Anarchy even have to do this if they thought that they were getting 25% of Mark's workshop sales? And why was this not brought up at the lunch meeting on September 19th? Because Carmen knew he never told his other partners that he had made that verbal agreement with me for 100% of my workshop. And he also knew that they had taken that money that was supposed to be held in trust and spent it on their expenses. Now, here's the screenshots of what Carmen has been saying. Okay. Mark agreed to speak well in advance of any mention of his workshop. No stipend was discussed. When Mark proposed the workshop, we agreed. Then he said he needed 6 hours, which meant there would be no way to have it run concurrent with the conference. I've already said this. We agreed to let him do it the day after on Monday. Agreed. When we started promoting it, a lot of people started buying only the workshop and not the conference ticket. This was never told to us until after all of this debacle happened. Okay. When it started to get out of hand, we had Pat Leach to offer him a flat rate of $1,000 to consolidate the workshop as a fourth day of the conference. In other words, this means I would forego taking any money from the workshop. I would take the $1,000 donation, and the workshop would be the fourth day of Anarchadelphia. This is what Carmen is claiming here that he charged Pat Leach to do, which was not what he asked him to do and never happened.
Yeah, this is the spin that we're hearing now. Never mentioned to us in a conversation whatsoever.
Right.
Or Pat.
Pat gives him the $1,000 without really explaining any of this to Mark. So he's trying to pin that on Pat. And we found out Mark was under the impression that Pat was facilitating a donation to Mark. You saw the Skype message screenshot yourself, ladies and gentlemen. I showed it on this show. And I ask you, what would you think? Okay. Pat says he gave the $1,000 and that we were good. From that point on, we were under the impression the workshop sales became day passes for the fourth day of Anarchadelphia. Total bullshit.
And in the same thread, Sonny himself says that they thought the $1,000 went toward what they owed you. Right. They cannot even get their story straight. Right. And the same thing in their podcast.
Well, then he's going on to say we offered them partial payment. I never agreed to take a payment plan. As I said, it's not about the money. It's about being integrous, being an integrous person, a person with integrity, and doing what you say you're going to do and honoring your word. Okay. Then he goes off calling my, people who follow my work cult members who got free admission. 10 people got into the conference for free on my guest list. That's all, folks. And you know what, folks? We might have to continue this at another show, but I want to try to wrap this up. November to the present. The fallout put a halt to almost all projects at What on Earth is Happening for several months because of how bad it financially hurt me. The city came and tried to condemn my home. I almost had to move out of here because a small crack in the facade on my home, about a foot long crack actually, that's only not even structural. They deemed, that's a structural something that makes the structure unsafe, and I had to shell out $10,000 to from my own pocket to get the outside of my home redone with a masonry contractor. Okay. So that killed me financially during this time. Okay. And, we put shelved projects for a while. The documentary was on a hold. Obviously the show went into hiatus, interviews and research, all of it. Pretty much I have not really done much What on Earth is Happening work in this downtime. Getting back to it now, finally. I was in extreme emotional distress over what I considered betrayal and blatant disrespect toward myself, but most of all, my entire body of work. And I spelled betrayal wrong there.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to go through this with them.
Yeah, and now these guys are down there promoting a new event with footage that I shot from last year.
Even worse, they're posturing up on their moral, so-called moral high ground, and they're turning this into an advertisement for their piggyback event onto Anarchapulco.
I'm going to blow through these last points real quick because we were almost out of time. People will ask, why didn't I insist on a legal contract? Okay, my answer is the same thing I said to the State of Anarchies regarding this whole thing actually in the conference call we had. I don't think anything like that should even be necessary between people who claim to understand the principles of anarchy and natural law, namely don't steal. Quite frankly, I didn't think it would be necessary, and I don't like operating that way. I like operating according to my word, which I'm capable of honoring. Late December, donations for the completion of the Natural Law documentary are now being accepted through What on Earth is Happening donation gifts at gifts.whatonearthishappening.com. We've brought on a new video editor this month. Sabrina Bocino is now hired to work on the completion of the Natural Law documentary, which is currently in progress and is going great. We have about 1 minute left. Okay. Honorable mentions, those who did act with integrity in their work with What on Earth is Happening and at the Anarchadelphia Conference: Pat Leach, Mike Seaman, Nate Kapp, Mitch Thompson, Logan Hart, Nia Bullock, Mackenzie Wolf, Flowey, Josh Lanzara, John Penwell, all of the speakers who participated in the event, all of the volunteers who helped out, the Anarchadelphia attendees who were wonderful, and especially my workshop attendees. Because let me tell you something, folks, a couple of people who have already said they're out there teaching natural law. And let me tell you something, folks, that's worth a hell of a lot more than $13,520. That new teachers of natural law are out there doing the great work. Okay, that to me, no price can be set. That is of infinite value, if you ask me. So I consider that workshop tremendous value and tremendous success. And I want to thank the people who actually participated in that and gave of their hard-earned resources to help make that workshop a success. And guess what? Those were the real victims in this whole debacle, not Mark Passio. So final thoughts, guys, because we're out of time.
Brett Hatton and Janet ESP were not on that list. They should be. We were rushing to put it together. Thank you to everyone that supports Mark and his work. It's really an amazing thing to watch, all of these incredible people learning from Mark and applying this in their lives. And I think you're the most incredible people that I've ever come across in my life. And it's
totally
a blessing. It's a blessing for me to be able to help and do what I do to help. And I do it with my whole heart. And I just thank everybody who's involved.
Pat, thank you for acting with integrity in the fallout of all of this. You really attempted to make things right. And I want to commend you for that.
Thank you for inviting me on the show, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right, folks, if you find the work that we do here at What on Earth is Happening valuable, please go up to What on Earth is Happening. You could go to the donation gift site and pick up hard copies. You could go get the art drive. You could make donations at the donate page. That's all the time we have for this edition of What on Earth is Happening. Ladies and gentlemen, government is slavery, and we will see you right here next Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.